No.
Will the council meeting of November 18th please come to order? It is approximately 9:02 a.m. Members, we have, I believe, 7 people to start. Our greeting today is from Kenya, Africa, and it is Hujambo. Hujambo. And as you probably know, Kenya is, the equator runs right through Kenya. Mr. Clerk, roll call.
Chair, proceeding with roll call. Members participating from non-public locations should state who, if anyone, except minors, is present with them as part of roll call. Councilmember Shane Sinensi.
Hujambo and aloha kakayaka kako mai Maui hikina and lono I kamakahiki. Holo lono makua I ke ala. I'm happy to join this morning from the Hana Cultural Center with my district staff, Mavis Medeiros, and currently there are no testifiers. Aloha.
Aloha.
Councilmember Mike Molina.
Aloha and Hujambo, Madam Chair. I'm transmitting here from the council chambers in Wailuku, and Hujambo and to you and everyone else joining us for our council meeting today. Currently, there are no testifiers at the Paia District Office. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kelly Takaya King.
Excused.
Councilmember Gabe Johnson.
Aloha, Chair, and good morning, council members and community members. I'm in the chambers today, so Hujambo to you, and there are no testifiers at the Lanai District Office. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Councilmember Tamara Paulton.
Aloha kakahiaka kako, and Hujambo, and Lono I kamakahiki. What a light show last night. No testifiers at the Lahaina District Office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Yukile Sugimura.
Hujambo, everybody. I'm in Kula and looking forward to a productive meeting.
Good to see you.
Presiding Officer Pro Tempore Tasha Kama.
Aloha kakahiaka Chair and Hujambo to my colleagues this morning. I am here in my workspace and I am alone. Looking forward to a wonderful council meeting today. Aloha.
Aloha.
Council Vice Chair Kiani Rollins Fernandez.
Aloha kakahiaka Chair. My Molokai nui Hina, I'm at the Molokai District Office, alone on my side of the office. And we have our Community Outreach Specialist, Zhantell Lindo, on the other side of the office. And I believe there are still no testifiers, but that could change. Lono I kamakahiki. Mahalo, Chair.
Mahalo.
And Council Chair Alice L. Lee.
Morning, everyone. Hujambo. Looking forward to a wonderful, efficient, short meeting. Thank you.
Chair, there are 8 members present, 1 member excused. A quorum is present to conduct the business of the council. For the record, I am Deputy County Clerk James Kruger. Also present from the Office of the County Clerk are Legislative Division staff Joyce Murashige, Lauren Saldana, and Del Yoshida. Joining the meeting from the Department of the Corporation Counsel is Corporation Counsel Moana Ludi and First Deputy Corporation Counsel Rochelle Thompson.
Opening remarks will be provided by Councilmember Johnson.
Mahalo, Chair, council members, community members. While driving home last night, I was in awe of the electrical storm above Haleakala, and that in turn made me feel grateful of the rain that fell yesterday. I started to think about the weather, and while I reflected on the importance of rain, it took me back to my farming days. Farmers of Maui County need our help. I often say the 3 most important things a farmer needs is land, water, and a little bit of capital to have success. Recently, we passed out of committee Phase 1 expansion of the Kula Agricultural Park, which creates the ability for farmers to follow organic practices. This was huge, and I want to thank the committee for voting unanimously on this important bill that I introduced. Agriculture parks are an important piece of the puzzle for the continued success of our food production and security. In today's Maui News, an article entitled Agriculture Park Expansion Could Put an Emphasis on Organic Crops explains that there is a huge demand for organic and healthier food grown locally. It also reads, getting on land and land with water resources is often the biggest barrier for emerging farmers. Members, this means that there's a role for us. We can help. It's been almost 2 years now since I've been advocating for the state to transfer its lease of 100 acres to the county for the Lanai Agriculture Park. Like a farmers who plant a seed, just yesterday I have issued a PAF for a request for legal services that will allow an intergovernment transfer to the County Department of Agriculture. Basically, our efforts will bear fruit soon. This makes me so happy for the island of Lanai. As we all know, Lanai is 98% owned by a billionaire, and the people of Lanai have to ask the company for every little thing. Well, now we may have a say in our economic future. People of Lanai will now be able to satisfy that entrepreneurial itch and work the land to live and thrive to feed our people. It will be a great day when that first batch of crops goes to market. And like the seasons of a calendar, we are not done. I've had meetings with the Kamehameha schools, and they have shown interest in leasing lands for an agriculture park in West Maui. So, Councilmember Paulton, looks like we have work to do. Good work. The people's work. Mahalo, Chair. I yield the floor.
Thank you very much, Member Johnson. And now please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Mr. Clerk. Oh, before we proceed with today's agenda, may I please request that everyone keep their microphones muted unless it's your turn to speak. Decorum shall be maintained at all times. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, proceeding with testimony on ceremonial resolutions. Members of the public may testify in the council chamber at courtesy testimony sites or remotely through the information listed on the meeting agenda. Individuals in the council chamber may sign up to testify with the staff member located at the desk in the 8th floor lobby. Individuals at courtesy testimony sites may sign up with the staff at the site. Individuals participating remotely may sign up in the meeting chat. If you're connected to the meeting by phone, we will be unmuting you at the end of every testimony period to verify whether or not you wish to testify. Individuals connected by phone are currently on mute and will be unmuted when it is their time to testify. Individuals connected by video conference should keep both their video and microphones off and should turn them on only when it is their time to testify. Testimony is limited to the items listed on the agenda. Individuals may testify for 3 minutes with up to 1 minute to conclude per item. When testifying, please state your name and the name of any organization you represent, as well as the items on which you will be testifying. Please also identify to the council if you are a paid lobbyist. Individuals may also be disconnected from the meeting at any time for breaking decorum. At this time, individuals may testify on ceremonial resolutions. Chair, there are currently no individuals signed up to testify on this item.
We see one.
Oh, okay.
Aloha kakahiaka, everybody.
Morning.
Hope everybody's having a good Friday. To make it short, I was resolution. Oh, my name is J.C. Law from Kulauka. The resolution. First thing I noticed was William McGarrow was a chief accountant for Hawaiian Sugar, and I wasn't going to say it. I was just going to kind of skip over this thing, but I'm very interested in the religious organizations here on Maui. I haven't visited this place yet, but I will. And he was the chief accounting officer, and coincidentally, the wahine that's getting paid to be secretary for Kula Roman Catholic Parish used to work in the accounting office before she got a job up there. And since I was still not going to say anything, but then when I saw that my counselor Yukile Sugimura signed the resolution, and I had to say something, and I would like her to pay attention and try to help me out up there in Kula, maybe talk to those guys. They won't help me with an address, and they keep sending my ballot back to Kathy's office in James. So yeah, I'm going to go down there and check it out, and maybe Mr. McGarrow can make a little spot for me down there beside him. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions, members?
Maikai Buddha.
Thank you. Any questions, members, for the testifier? If not, thank you very much, Mr. Clerk.
Chair, there are no other individuals signed up to testify on this item, so we'll do last call. If there is anybody else who would like to testify on this item, please identify yourself now. I repeat, last call.
Okay. Members, are there any objections to closing public testimony and accepting written testimony for ceremonial resolutions?
No objection.
No
Objections.
So ordered. Mr. Clerk?
Chair, proceeding with ceremonial resolutions. You have before you Resolution 22-256 entitled Congratulating Pu'unene Nichiren Mission on its 100th anniversary.
Presiding Officer Pro Tem Kama?
Chair, I would like to ask if Member Yuki Lei Sugimura would like to do the resolution. Yuki, are
Member
you
Sugimura?
gonna do it? You want to?
So,
Okay.
Tasha, if you would proceed, I would appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, Chair, I move to adopt Resolution 22-256.
Second.
Moved by Pro Tem Kama to adopt Resolution 22-256, seconded by Member Sugimura. Member Kama.
Thank you, Chair. May I please request the clerk to read the resolution in its entirety?
Mr. Clerk?
Congratulating Pu'unene Nichiren Mission on its 100th anniversary. Whereas, commencing around 1915, Reverend Gyoun Takagi was the first overseas minister tasked to spread Nichiren Buddhism on Maui. And whereas, Mr. and Mrs. Genpachi Sakata, along with Reverend Genyu Oba, helped to establish a temporary location in 1920 to spread the Lotus Sutra in the town of Wailuku. And whereas, Mr. William McGarrow, the chief accountant for the Hawaiian Commercial and Sugar Company, announced he would offer a parcel of land next to a public cemetery free of charge to any Japanese Buddhist temple. And Reverend Oba immediately applied for such land, despite its remote location. And whereas, Reverend Oba and other devoted members embarked on an island-wide mission to raise funds to build the temple. And whereas, on November 5th, 1922, the completion of the Pu'unene Nichiren mission was celebrated in its current location with founding Reverend Oba. And whereas, in March 1957, after World War II, Reverend Taimyo Shinkai was installed as the resident minister, revived the temple as a social and religious gathering place, and organized the first Young Buddhists Association on Maui, teaching judo and kendo classes to attract younger members. And whereas, in April 1963, Reverend Shinkai passed away unexpectedly at the age of 38, leaving behind his wife and 3 young children. And whereas, Mrs. Shinkai rose to the challenge, studied in Japan, and returned to Maui as Reverend Myocho Shinkai, the first woman to become a minister in the Nichiren sect on Maui. And whereas, in March 1975, a fire consumed the temple, and most artifacts were lost. However, at great danger to herself, Reverend Shinkai saved some artifacts and urns housed at the temple. And whereas, with the dedicated, though small, membership, funds were raised to reconstruct the temple in September 1975, ahead of schedule. And whereas, in June 1988, through the tireless efforts of Reverend and Mrs. Kaiju Kumazawa and board officials Iwai Sato and Bill Azeka, a separate columbarium was dedicated, with bishops and other representatives from Japan and throughout Hawai'i, and mission congregants participating. And whereas, through the next 30-plus years, the temple continued, and continues today, often without a resident minister, to provide services, comfort, and socialization to its members, including several Japanese dance academies. And whereas, the Pu'unene Nichiren mission continues to honor and revere William McGarrow and his wife, Lucy, by caring for their graves located on the site of the temple. And whereas, the exceptional dedication, conduct, and commitment of the members of the Pu'unene Nichiren mission have brought pride and honor to the residents of Maui County. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the County of Maui, 1. That it congratulates the Pu'unene Nichiren mission on its 100th anniversary, and 2. That certified copies of this resolution be transmitted to Bishop Shokai Kanai, Nichiren Mission of Hawaii, and Yaiko Yamamoto, President, Pu'unene Nichiren Mission.
Pro Tem Kama. Discussion.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Clerk, for reading the resolution. Members, I am pleased to have the opportunity to recognize the Pu'unene Nichiren mission on its 100th anniversary. I'd also like to support the efforts of Ms. Hester Honda in helping to preserve the history and significance of the only Nichiren Shu temple on Maui and one of 4 remaining temples in Hawaii. I respectfully ask that the members to join me in congratulating Pu'unene Nichiren Mission by supporting my motion.
Thank you. Member Sugimura, did you have any comments?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for doing this resolution. I have to commend Hester Honda, who worked with our office. I think we heard from her like 6 months ago, trying to ensure that this gets done. So appreciate members for honoring this church. And I think in the audience, there's Yaeko Yamamoto, who's the president of the Nichiren Shoshu Church. And at the appropriate time, if you would allow her to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any more comments or discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 All ayes, 0 noes. We have 1 excused. Do we now have 8 people? 8 ayes, 1 excused. Member King, motion carries. And now, members, could we have the guest come up and say a few words?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Yaeko Yamamoto.
Morning.
I'm a Pu'unene Nichiren Mission Board President, and we are very honored to have this resolution for our church's 100 years. And I appreciate you all take time and consider to give us this resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all you do for our community. Members, could you wait? We have someone who will give you the resolution. Members, you can also walk up and congratulate the president. Mr. Clerk, where are we?
Proceeding with testimony on remaining agenda items. At this time, individuals may testify on any remaining item on the agenda. The first person we have signed up to testify is Gina Chamberlain, to be followed by Ke'eomoku Kapu. I repeat, Gina Chamberlain. Oh.
Yes, can you?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you for allowing me to speak to the council. My name is Gina Chamberlain, and I'm the Homeownership Program Manager for Rural Community Assistance Corporation. We're a regional nonprofit serving the 13 Western states. I also had a chance to speak to the Affordable Housing Committee on CR 22-119 on November 3rd, and also had the chance to hear all of the discussion from the committee members and other testifiers. I want to speak to the importance of this bill and the importance of extending the period of affordability through the resale restrictions, and want to encourage the council to extend these the resale restrictions for as long as possible, ideally for 30 or more years. This is a key component to building a homeownership market, not only for the immediate future, but also for the long-term success. I guess I want to step back from, examples of other communities and data and just say that I've been working in this field for over 30 years. And what is what is surprising from my perspective is that some of these discussions that I was a part of really early on, whether something should be for 10 years or 20 years, the common theme is that the longer, the better. When I first started, we were looking at restrictions that were just 10 years old. Just 10 years long. And it was that 10 years passed really quickly. And we saw the negative impact of losing all of that affordable housing to a community that was still in significant need. In addition, I want to just say that in working in the 13 states, we are receiving regular requests on looking at other communities, figuring out ways to build the market that I think these resale restrictions are designed to help build that market for people who are living and working and raising their families in communities that have really high cost housing markets. And then those markets that are also really competing with tourism and second homes and Airbnbs, and that the keeping these homes in that market for as long as possible, because you're not going to be able to solve that problem in just 1 year, that the work that you do today is going to still be needed the 20 years or 30 years from now, because you're going to gradually build on that market, and you don't want to lose any of that investment as the resale restrictions expire. So thank you for the opportunity.
Members, questions? Member Tamara Paulton.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Chamberlain. So just to clarify, what you're saying is that a 30-year deed restriction won't hamper the homeowner from getting refinance or things like that if their kids need to go to college?
Actually, that's a great... I'm sorry, do you want me to respond?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a great question. And no, typically mortgage financing, you're still with the resale restrictions that you have in place and the deed restrictions you have in place, the owner is still gaining equity both through the payment of their mortgage and then also the resale calculation. And so that's the equity that a homeowner can use to refinance or get another loan for those other life expenses. So it's not limiting that. The normal market works the same way. This is just making sure that those homes don't appreciate beyond the affordability for future homeowners.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for your testimony, and thank you for answering my question.
Any more questions? If not, thank you very much. Next testifier.
The next person signed up to testify is Ke'eaumoku Kapu, to be followed by Noelani Ahia.
Hi, aloha, can you hear me?
Yes, aloha.
Aloha kakayaka, council members, good morning. Lono ika makahiki. I want to testify on CR 22-120 Bill 154. It's very disturbing for me to, again, go through the gamut pertaining to my issues and concerns about this very issue of the cultural overlay. I feel it's really, really important at this moment to get this thing going. I've sat on the Cultural Resources Commission from 2004. I also sat on the Borough Council for an 8-year term. And the reason why I did that is because somebody needed to advocate for a lot of the historic properties and resources that are very abundant in the county of Maui. And it's evident that we in Lahaina are facing issues pertaining to this very subject. when it comes to companies that did archaeological inventory surveys that didn't complete it, and that's the reason why we have 3 open trenches still yet to be determined by the Maui Lanai Island Borough Council, which basically tells me that the state is inadequate to doing any type of assessment pertaining to how they need to protect the resources that we have in place. These barrels have been exposed from early 2000. I've advocated from 2001 on this very area known as Waine'e on the amount of cultural, historic properties as well as barrels that is abundant in this area. And I feel that if the state is inadequate to make sure that they protect the resources for our Kanaka Maoli, especially for barrels that is evident in these so-called areas where cultural overlay is very well needed. And that's why I really support this, to make sure that the county also has a say when it comes to the protection and preservation of historic properties and burials. Now that the county has adopted, these so-called policies and has a certified archaeologist in place, it gives us hope, our Kanaka Maoli hope, that there is an overlay to make sure that these any type of development, before they even develop in these areas, they would know for themselves that the area would be potential or not potential. This area that I speak of right now is red hot zone areas. Very, very disturbing as to how all of a sudden these companies can get exemptions to put in water lines over existing properties and do zigzags, knowing that if they know where these barrels are, to just miss the barrels and worry about those later. That's totally inadequate for me. So I'm now hollow this council in closing for all of the great work that you guys been doing this past year. And I really encourage this council to look into making sure that we have this protection for our kupuna, our iwi kupuna that is in place, especially the historic properties. And don't lay into all these recommendations on changing these so-called recommendations for the cultural overlay. I think you guys did a wonderful job. And I think you guys should adopt everything that is before you and get this thing passed, so the Kanaka Maoli community can feel safe that we have people, that watchdogs such as yourselves, are doing a very, very wonderful job for us. So mahalo for allowing me to testify. I'm glad to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, members? Member Sinensi.
Mahalo, Chair, and mahalo, Mr. Kapu, for your testimony this morning. Just a clarifying question. You mentioned the inadequacies at the state level. Can you, in your experience on these burial councils, how long has some of these, have we waited for the state to kind of opine on some of these projects?
Mahalo for that question. And it gets even really complicated when you're dealing with the state historic preservation division, especially with the burial council. It depends on what is designated. Now, if it's an inadvertent fine, then that normally is under the discretion of the state. Now, if it's previously found, then the burial council is the one that makes a determination. But what makes things even more complicated is the Kanaka Maoli that has a relationship to these areas has to file a cultural or lineal descendancy claim. And once that is done, that can take way amount of times to make sure that we have people at the forefront that are there to ask the adequate questions when it comes to the preservation and protection of these historic properties. So with the cultural overlay, it's important that before we go into those areas and before they hit barrels, we'll know for sure by the determination of the cultural overlay, so we don't have to go to the politics with the State Historic Preservation Division, which basically a lot of barrels that they found previously. We've been dealing with barrels that are over 30 years old in SHPD to try to make sure we can get preservation areas set for them so we can do reinterments, such as Puamana Park is what I'm dealing with right now. Those barrels have been in that lockup since 2017, and only today we're able to put it back. The culture overlay would be the most important opportunity for all of us to see what is there before any approval is given for any type of potential development. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. Mahalo, Mr. Kapu. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Any more questions? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, the next person signed up to testify is Noelani Ahia, to be followed by Randy Wagner.
Aloha kakahiaka kako, lono ika makahiki. I am testifying this morning on my own behalf. I'm Noelani Ahia, and I'm testifying in support of Bill 154. Reading some posted testimony this morning, I saw that it suggested that this bill is replicating a process that SHPD already has in place. And let me make it clear, SHPD does not prevent desecration. SHPD has basically been set up to fail and has been derelict in their duties to protect our iwi kupuna. For example, as Uncle Keomoku Kapu mentioned, iwi kupuna have been sitting on the shelves at SHPD. These are our ancestors, sitting on shelves for some 30 plus years. And in the last year and a half, the community has taken initiative to begin to reinter these iwi kupuna, but we shouldn't have to do that because they never should have been dug up in the first place. And that's what we're aiming to do with this bill, is prevent the desecration. When we look at Waiko Light Industrial, there's been 17 boxes of bones that have been dug up since the beginning of the pandemic, just in the last 3 years. This is horrific. It puts a strain on us as Kanaka Maoli, on our time, our energy, our spiritual connection to our iwi kupuna, and this is cultural genocide. When we look at Maui Phase 6, there are 189 find sites, and that's 184 found after the archaeological inventory survey. And this is because of really bad archaeology work that SHPD signs off on. SHPD does not prevent desecration, but this bill can. This is about respecting the humanity of the Kanaka Maoli people, the first people of this land, and protecting what is sacred. If people in Hawaii who've come here don't think that digging up Hawaiian burials, or think that digging up Hawaiian burials is acceptable, they really don't belong in Hawaii and they should leave. This is our aina, these are our kupuna, this is our nourishment, this is our mana, this is our life force, this is what makes us who we are, and it must be protected. This is a proactive bill which will prevent our aunties and tutus from having to jump in front of bulldozers, and it will cut down on lawsuits. The only ones who lose out really are the attorneys who represent the developers in these lengthy lawsuits. Similar legislation was proposed in the 90s, but it was shot down by big business interests, and it could have prevented so much tragedy and harm. But today, you folks have the opportunity to do the Pono thing. We've spent 2 years, and this version before you today is something that everyone has agreed on, including all of the departments. The care and protection of iwi kupuna is connected to the health and well-being of Kanaka Maoli. And I can tell you unequivocally that our people are hurting. Our people have suffered, our people have been harmed, and our people are mutiny because of this desecration. But you folks have an opportunity to change that and uplift our people and protect our aina and our kupuna. Mahalo nui for your time today. Aloha.
Thank you. Members, questions? If not, thank you very much.
The next person signed up to testify is Randy Wagner in the chamber, to be followed by Ernest Rezents.
Aloha. Good morning. Thank you for being here and for hearing my testimony. I'm testifying in support of Resolution 22258, which refers to landscape planting. The first part is in regards to Title 12.24A040, which is landscape planting and beautification, the purpose of which is to protect, preserve, and encourage planting of trees in the county. And it refers to the Maui County Planting Plan, which was years in developing, which describes very specifically which trees thrive where, how to plant trees, how to maintain trees. And at this point in time, it is only advisory. And as we all know, advice can be ignored. And our intention is to make this a standard requirement for all departments, that they adhere to the knowledge in the Maui County Planting Plan and not just have it be advisory. The second part of this resolution is referring to Title 19.36B080, which is the landscape planting in parking lots. This is particularly important because that needs to be tightened up. It now says it's for shade, but we want the language to read maximum shade over hardscape, because at this time with global warming, it requires one tree for every 5 spaces, but it doesn't require that the trees be allowed to grow to full canopy height to provide shade. And we all know that trees are the best air filter there is. They take in carbon, they give out oxygen, they cool the environment, they increase property values, they uptake water. Parking lots can be designed so that they drain into tree wells so that the water can be filtered. And across the country, there are ordinances in many, many areas that require 50% shade coverage. We would like our ordinance in Maui County to require 50% shade over hardscape. I know that if you look around, you'll see parking lots where trees have been allowed to grow that are fabulous and beautiful. And then you've seen parking lots that cut their trees, top their trees every 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 times a year, and turn them into little lollipop trees that don't provide shade at all. As a matter of fact, they gradually are killing the trees by doing that. Trees should be only trimmed once a year, 20% maximum, to remove the dead wood, and they should be allowed to grow into the intention of the law, which was to provide shade. If anyone wants to ask me about the planning department's not supporting this, why, I would be happy to respond.
Members, any questions? Member Sinensi.
Yes, I'd like to hear your response.
The planning department suggests that the Maui County Planning Plan is already required in the parking lot ordinance 19.36, and I don't see that anywhere. So I don't understand. I requested to them, where is it shown that that's required? And it's there. I haven't had a response to that. The second objection they had is that the departments have different requirements to supervise and administer the trees in different divisions, like Parks has some and Public Works has some and Planning has some. And we're not suggesting that any of that should change. We're suggesting that the Maui County Planting Plan be the standard requirement for all departments, as it is now advisory for all departments. So if people want more clarification of this, I would recommend we send it to the care committee. However, we did request that it be sent to the commissions.
Any more questions? If not, thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, let the record show that Member Kelly King has joined us. Morning.
Good morning. Konnichiwa. I don't know if it's morning over here. It's 4:30 a.m. for 9:40 your time, 4:40 my time. But happy to be here, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Wagner. May
Chair.
we have the next testifier, please?
The next person signed up to testify is Ernest Rezents in the chamber, to be followed by Kimberly Willenbring.
Wait.
Good morning. My name is Ernest Rezents. It's been a long time since I've been here. And I come today to speak about trees and the Maui County Planting Plan, which I am the author of. This is the 3rd edition. And parking lot shade primarily. And trees are very important because they take in the carbon dioxide, which is one of the gases that produce global warming. And this book here has a chapter on parking lot trees. And therefore, if you plant them properly and take care of them, you're going to have good parking lot shade. And that is super important. And I was told that the county is adhering to this, but yet the enforcement, I don't think, is there. And the trees take in carbon dioxide to make their cow, their Costco supply. And if you overprune them, they're starving. They don't have the ability to make food. So, and to make their cow, they take in the carbon dioxide, and therefore that's a global warming gas. So if you have good parking lot shade, you're going to have less CO2. You're going to help the global warming problem that we're faced with. Now, a well-shaded parking lot, Dr. Wolf did research. People travel further, stay longer, and spend more money. Therefore, there's more taxes coming in for government. And that is a God's fact. You yourselves, when you go shopping, do you park in the sun or do you look for a shade tree? So it's a matter of fact. So this Maui County Plan, the chapter on parking lot shade is recommended because we don't have any ordinance to enforce it. And we were told, oh, but we adhere to it. Yeah, maybe it's orally. But if you put an ordinance that this parking lot chapter be followed and adhered to, I think you're doing benefit for Maui County by cooling it off, by having the trees take in the carbon dioxide. And people travel further, they spend more money, so you're going to have more revenue coming in. So it's a plus. It's a win-win situation. So Maui County Plan, parking lot tree chapter should be mandatory and not just recommended. You have any questions? Where do you park when you go shopping?
Okay, members, do you have questions? Member King.
Thank you, Chair. Aloha, Ernie. So good to see you. Haven't seen you for a while. Well, since the last outdoor circular meeting. But you are Mr. Trees here in Maui County. Could you give us a little more clarity on what you mean by the Maui planting plan is not being enforced?
Well, I don't have proof per se, but just that the way I see things going in places, it could have been done better. And parking lot shade, you see, people bullyhead their trees in parking lots because they feel this is going to make it cheaper for them. And we darn well know that shaded parking lots is very advantageous. So somehow, maybe even if we give them a little tax break to encourage them to maintain their canopy, because they're on private property, see? So some kind of a incentive that they don't over prune their trees. Because some people have a tree without branches. I got a tree, but it doesn't do any benefit. Because the trees in photosynthesis take in carbon dioxide, like I said, and that will help the global warming issue. And when you have a well-shaded parking lot, they will travel further, stay longer, and spend more money, and therefore everybody wins. This is proven scientifically, what I just said.
Right, but you have, can you give us some insight into whether we're following the planting plan in the county parking lots, as far as the number of trees and the canopy of the trees? Because that was one of the concerns I had heard, that the number of trees that we're supposed to.
I think parking lots in general, not just county parking lots. I know you have jurisdiction over those, but the public parking lots, maybe some kind of a tax incentive to maintain the shade, and because they don't know about Dr. Wolf's research. They'll make more money, and you get reimbursed by taxes, like I just said, if you have a well-shaded parking lot. But parking lots are important, and we need to have them shaded better, because the carbon dioxide, global warming issue we're faced with, it is amazing when you read about the droughts, even on the mainland. Lake Mead is drying up, which is going to supply the water for the break. Okay.
Thank you. And I totally agree with you. We've been talking about trees at COP27 as well, and in relation to the global warming issue. I just wanted to get your insight into whether you were seeing the numbers of trees that were in the planting plan. But that's okay. If you don't have that information, that's all right.
But they have to keep, and they have to keep the canopy. You can have a tree there without any leaves. I got my tree.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Rezents.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good.
Thank
May
you,
we have the
Chair.
next testifier?
Chair, I believe we have one. I just was told we have one anonymous testifier again at the South Maui District Office.
Oh, okay. All right.
Chair, the next person we have signed up to testify is Kimberly Willenbring in the chambers, to be followed by Rochelle Kapu.
Good morning, Chair Lee, members of the council. My name is Kimberly Willenbring, and I'm here to testify just briefly on Committee Report 22-122. Just wanted to say thank you for taking this matter up. It's very important to me and others, and largely it's important to all people in the workplace, particularly women. I don't have anything else to say about that. I know that this isn't complete yet and that you'll be traveling next week, so safe travels and I'll see you there. But I also just wanted to say thank you for your service moving into the next 2 years. Thank you for those that are leaving, those that are staying, and the newcomers. And I just this morning opened my completion paperwork for my retirement from the County of Maui. So thank you for all the years that I've been able to work with all of you. Aloha.
Thank you, Ms. Willenbrink. Any questions? Member King has a question.
Thank you, Chair, and aloha, Kimberly. Good luck on your retirement. I'm happy for you. Maybe I'll see you in my retirement from the council. But the question I wanted to ask you is, you said I'll see you over there. So does that mean that all of the testifiers are required to be there in person?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember King. No, I think some of us are just going to be there and to see this thing through to its completion.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any more questions? If not, thank you very much. See ya.
Chair, the next person signed up to testify is Rochelle Kapu, to be followed by Janet Six. Rochelle Kapu, it is your time to testify. Chair, we'll move on to the next testifier. The next person
Aloha.
signed up to testify. Oh.
Aloha.
Hi. Aloha. Mahalo for allowing me to testify today. I'm sorry, trying to find a quiet space here. All right. I'm testifying on Bill 154. It's something that we've worked on so very hard. I'm in favor of this bill so deeply. It's something that needs to be done. We're tired of having to go in front of council or go in front of commissions to testify on behalf of sacred areas, areas that have iwi kupuna, areas that have historical sites. So this bill is very important to us. Everyone in Hawaii, everyone that has put their heads to this aina, that have been here for years and have made this their home. It's because of what the culture is about. It's because of the people itself, not just Kanaka Maoli, everyone. And, you know, as a kapa maker, as an iwi protector, as a just someone that does education on historical sites, our moku'ula. You know, it's not easy going in front of people and having to share your mana'o about areas that people say, you know what, it's not important, we need to move forward, we need development, we need this and that. No, they came before us and we have to remember that. There's so much significance in what Hawaii is about. It's a special place. And this bill will help us to protect that special place. So I'm mahalo for this time, and alono makahiki ho. Aloha.
Aloha. Members, questions? If not, thank you very much. May we have the next testifier?
The next person signed up to testify is Janet Six, to be followed by Jason Economou.
Aloha, I'm Dr. Janet Six, the principal archaeologist for the County of Maui. Obviously, I'm in support of this bill. I just wanted to make some clarifications. I read some of the online testimony that was submitted, and this is not meant to slow anything down. This is actually meant to facilitate permitting. It's meant to be information that people can make decisions about. I deal with lots of people in the public that buy lots and then want to know why they have to do an AIS and why they have to spend all this money and then they can't build their house. So what we want to do is provide as much information as we know that is available to put out there for people to make informed decisions. Instead of sending every single thing to SHPD that involves ground altering, the idea is, as I am permitted by the state of Hawaii since 2004 as a licensed archaeologist, I would work with SHPD and able to streamline the process. And I've been doing this for the county on a number of projects already. So this is something, the idea that this is a duplicate process, it's not. It's meant to save time, it's meant to save money, but the most important, it's meant to protect sites, cultural sites, whether they're iwi kupuna in burial complexes or heiau, or even plantation infrastructure. It's idea to identify what's on a parcel in an area so that people can make informed decisions. But I just really want to emphasize, I don't have the power to stop things. I'm not going to be stopping things. What I'm going to be doing, which I've been doing for mayor's office, is providing people information so that they can make informed decisions. It's not pejorative, it's informative. It's data, and that data is very powerful. And I think once we get the cultural overlay bill passed and we get the cultural overlay database started, that people will see that this will speed up the process of permitting, not slow it down. That's what I have to say.
Questions, members? Member Sinensi.
Thank you, Chair. In the interest of time, if there are no objections, I wanted to designate Dr. Six as a resource when the item comes up, just in case members have additional questions.
Any objections, members?
No objections, Chair.
So ordered.
No objection.
All right. May we have the next testifier?
Chair, the next person signed up to testify is Jason Economou, to be followed by Norm Franco.
Good morning, Council Chair Lee and council members. Am I speaking too loud?
Yes.
Okay. If I lean back, is that a little bit better?
Yes.
Let me try and fix this setting real quick with you. So sorry about this. Anyway, I'll speak lightly. This morning, I'm testifying on behalf of the Realtors Association of Maui as their Government Affairs Director regarding Bill 103. First and foremost, we came to you with a proposed amendment, and thank you. Thank you all for including that amendment and allowing people to maintain property ownership even if financial hardship hits them for a couple of years. We really want to be able to keep people in their homes because there's a whole host of benefits that come with home ownership. One of the aspects that I've seen getting a lot of focus is the building of equity. And what I want to address is that when RAM examined this bill, there wasn't really much concern regarding the equity sharing or the shared appreciation because that seemed to already exist within the code itself. But one thing that I want to address is that with the way mortgages are structured, having a 30-year mortgage, a lot of times when people sell a home early, they are getting a lot of equity, but that equity is largely built on the managed debt that they've been holding. So when you have these shorter deed restrictions, people can break out of the deed restrictions early and sell and then get a windfall that's far beyond the amount of the subsidy that was going into the property in some instances. So, there's real economic concerns as far as is the county doing something fiscally responsible if they don't create some measure to try and recuperate the amount of subsidy that they've put into the housing. I think that was the real crux of the controversy behind the changes to the Affordable Housing Fund that allowed for increased subsidy. So those increased subsidies don't really make sense if the county doesn't have a mechanism to hold back that property in a method that's affordable for its residents. So beyond that, though, I really must warn that I'm not an expert on financing. So what I would say is listen to the mortgage professionals that you're hearing from and ask them if there's really an issue as far as equity or the affordability of the house given the extended deed restrictions. From RAM's perspective, people sign 30-year mortgages as a standard. So that in and of itself is a limitation on equity that can be built. Limitations exist. What's fair is ultimately determined by you and the market. So that's our input. Thank you for the amendments that you made, and I hope you. Some of the other legislation is great. Protecting the cultural remains, protecting the trees, and protect your residents, please. And thank you very much.
Thank you, members. Questions? Member Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. So as it stands now, it's a 20-year deed restriction. And if my understanding is correct, you said you would support a 30-year deed restriction because of the way the other times are set up, like a 30-year mortgage?
Councilmember Johnson, I said that RAM does not have a position regarding the length of the deed restrictions because we as an organization are focused on housing and home ownership, not the financing of the housing, though we have a lot of financiers in our membership. We haven't heard any complaints from them regarding this, so I got to say that I'm technically neutral regarding that, okay. The length, the specifics of the length.
Thank you for clarifying that, Jason, or Mr. Economou. Mahalo, Chair.
Member Kama.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here, Mr. Economou. So I just want to be clear in my understanding of equity. So the shorter the deed restriction, the more equity is developed within a home or property?
No. So this is going to get a little complex to try and explain. But what I mean by the length of time, in the past 3 years is a good example. We saw the prices of housing drastically increase, right, far beyond what somebody might have purchased that housing for at, let's say, the 100 or 120 AMI level. If people are allowed to sell within these shorter gaps where there's this massive increase in housing prices, then what ends up happening is, yes, there's there's limitations on how much they can sell for, but the overall property is much more expensive than might have been anticipated when the equity sharing or deed restrictions were put in place.
That wasn't helpful, but I'm
so sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, it's complex. Yeah,
it's really complex, and that's why I think it's good to hear from the mortgage folks.
Yeah, you're right.
When it comes to that. But what I am saying is, it's the big criticism of the Affordable Housing Fund is that it's a giveaway, and if you're subsidizing housing units at $300,000 per unit, and people are able to sell those units and make windfalls. That's a giveaway, and you're losing the housing inventory that you just spent hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars on. So that's the real concern. So even aside from the equity building, people will be able to build equity regardless in the Maui market. Homeownership comes with that, but also the decreased rent. I mean, right now, a lot of mortgages are less than people are paying in rent for the same size unit. So there's those benefits, plus the stability, plus all of that. What I'm really concerned about is that taxpayer dollars are going into housing to try and help our lower income residents. And we don't want that inventory necessarily lost because those residents are just as important to our community as the higher income residents that can buy a house with cash.
Right. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I
Any
get
more
it now.
questions? Thank you.
Chair.
Any more questions? If not, thank you very much, Mr. Economou.
Thank you.
Chair, the next person signed up to testify is Norm Franco, to be followed by Stan Franco.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. On the Bill 103, based on my 44 years experience in real estate as a broker and as an appraiser, I would support a 30-year restriction. And the reason for that is you try to maintain workforce housing for as long as you can and stifle the opportunities for speculation. I've seen where in previous county projects that have a 10-year restriction was too short of a time, and those homes, as soon as the 10 years expired, were sold in the open market. I've been advocating for quite a long time now that we should have a separate market, as a sort of Hawaiian homes program for non-Hawaiians, with the county owning the land in perpetuity and affordability in perpetuity, instead of doing what you're trying to do, which work with developers who are based on a profit motive instead of on a motive of providing housing for the workforce of Maui. We're losing our population on a daily basis. I see it every day. Our young families can no longer afford to live on this island. Their hope of home ownership is being dashed. When you have homes selling for over $1 million in the Wailuku Heights area, it's totally ridiculous, and it's craziness. And I experienced it firsthand with a client who had a property in Kula and he wanted to sell to move into the Wailuku area to be close to his daughter. When he found out that a home about the size of a standard 3-bedroom, 2-bath on a lot, I've seen golf greens bigger than that lot, selling for $1.2 million. I don't know in any consciousness. I told the salesperson, how can you justify that? And her response was, well, that's the market. Well, the market's all messed up. And it's because of an invasion that's coming to this island by people who have cash. They don't care what they pay, and they pay ridiculous prices, and they totally devastate the local market. So my question, my answer to Council Tasha Kama, yes, there is a difference. When you go 20-year, okay. That's all I got to say, unless I give it more time.
Norman, can you just wrap it up in 30 seconds?
Okay, if you have a restriction of 20 years or you base your mortgage in 20 years, you're building up equity faster than if you're going on a 30-year mortgage. But it's all based on the fair market value of the home at the time of sale. So now if you have a home that you sold to somebody for $300,000 and in 20 years, the value has gone up to maybe $800,000, then the gain is faster. They can realize the gain faster than a 30-year restriction. And most mortgages, and speaking for, because we work with mortgage people on the appraisal side, they want certainty. So I would recommend a 30-year restriction based on a 30-year mortgage. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions, members? Member Kama.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Franco, for being here. So my question is, I realize that mortgage lenders want a 30-year mortgage because they do want to make sure that mortgage is able to be repaid. And so we're looking at doing a 20-year deed restriction on these 30-year mortgages. So what is, from your perspective as a realtor or someone who's been in the market for many, many years, is that helpful to the homeowner?
Okay, well, if you allow them to break out of this restriction for hardship reasons or for other purposes, but you have to keep it within affordability. And so it doesn't really matter from their point of view if it's 20 or 30. It would matter if they can spin that property off into the open market and realize a windfall gain. But if you keep it 30 years, that deters that possibility. And, it doesn't hurt the homeowner, actually. I don't think it does. It's really based on trying to keep it affordable for as long as period of time as you can. The ultimate goal is to make it perpetual affordable, but that is another issue entirely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your response. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
Any more questions? If not, thank you very much. May we have the next testifier, please?
Chair, the next person signed up to testify is Stan Franco, to be followed by Trinette Furtado.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Morning. Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Chair Lee and members of the Maui County Council. I'm thankful for all of you and your devotion to the well-being of the residents of Maui County. As you know, I'm Stan Franco, and I come to do testimony on Bill number 103. For too long in our island home, we have not addressed the housing crisis that our people face. Since 2017, Face Maui and Stand Up Maui have championed that the County of Maui have a plan to develop the strategies to build the homes our people can afford at the incomes they earn in Maui County. I credit you for taking that bold step of creating that plan in 2021 and your subsequent legislative actions to make the plan implementable. Today, we can take the next logical step in that implementation. You have before you Bill number 103, which requires that deed restrictions be placed on homes that we, the people of Maui County, invest our property dollars to subsidize the construction of the homes or to finance the home purchase. The question that you are faced with today is how long should that deed restriction period be? To me, the restriction period should be the same as the term for a normal mortgage loan, 30 years. Some have said that it's too long because it would not allow a home buyer to build wealth for himself and his family. In a normal market-based economy, home builders would build to meet the needs of the common man and woman. They did, and I bought my first home in 1975 for $40,500. But we are not in a normal market where the average home costed more than $1 million. As the comprehensive affordable plan is called for, we must change our view of building homes like we did and when I was setting up my household in 1975. The most important thing that you can do today is to decide that a 30-year deed restriction is reasonable, that we the people will not be continually replacing subsidized homes with shorter-term restrictive period because they are sold on the open market. I believe that this is a reasonable trade-off for our investment of property tax dollars, 30 years, the term of a normal mortgage loan. By creating the subsidized market for our local people, we are saying to them we care about them, that they have a place to celebrate family birthdays and anniversaries, a place to watch with friends a favorite sporting event, and a place for our children to study and do their homework. I believe that our people will say yes to the 30-year restriction because they can afford an affordable mortgage loan, payment loan. With a reasonable mortgage payment, our people can save for their children's education, for family vacations, and if they want to buy a market-priced home in the future. I, Stan Franco, come before you today to ask that you approve a 30-year deed restriction for all homes that are subsidized by our property tax dollars. And thank you very much for listening, and have a good day.
Thank you. Members, questions? If not, thank you very much.
Chair, the next person signed up to testify is Trinette Furtado, to be followed by Kaniloa Kamaunu.
Aloha mai kākou, can you hear me?
Yes.
Aloha Chair Lee and council members, mahalo for the opportunity to testify this morning. What an awesome evening display we had last night to usher in the season of makahiki, lono ika makahiki, everybody. I'm here to testify briefly on two CRs today. The first one, CR 22-119, relating to residential workforce housing restrictions. And I absolutely support this CR. I think that it is necessary given the rabid consumption of any available and decently priced real estate by people who have recently arrived, by people that were looking to escape COVID. All of these different reasons, but that pushed generational families out of much needed housing. And we already know that we had a housing shortage before that. This would also help, I think, curb for-profit rentals in these areas whose rents exceed what would normally be asked in an affordable rental property area, just because that's what the market rates are going for and these people can get it. I know this because I have a friend who lives in a house that is rented out for more than, I'm sure, what the person is paying for as a mortgage, and in an affordable area. And because housing is so critical and hard to find, she has asked me to not, speak further about who this is or what development it's in, but it is happening. It could also help possibly curb second home buyers who slip through loopholes to obtain a home that they then turn around and rent in such a manner. That's what I've got to say about that. I hope that you will pass this. I think it's very important. I don't have a home I rent right now, but I am hopeful that I will be able to get into one of our affordable developments and provide a home for not just myself, but for my daughter and for any other family members that come down the line. The second issue that I want to testify on is CR 22-120, which is the cultural overlay. And I support that as well. I think, it's been a long time in coming. Historically, when issues involving Kanaka have come up for deliberation, those who profit most are often the ones who don't want to change the system that allows them to commit desecration, while residents must prove that they are lineally, like they are connected to people who aren't even connected, to speak for those who cannot speak, to speak for the Aina, to speak for iwi kupuna, to speak for practices. It's an uphill battle for respect, which is sorely lacking. This is necessary in reminding people that a people and long-standing practices, a civilization, existed and continues to exist, though rampant and selfish development and profiteering off of our Aina have changed the landscape both literally and figuratively for Kanaka, even more dispossessed today on our own Aina. A cultural overlay would give a voice, no matter how small the whisper, to wahi that urgently need a voice. One wouldn't think about bulldozing a church in their neighborhood, digging up graves to move them, or pouring cement over them to protect them, or even further, restricting the area so that long-standing practices can no longer be observed there. People would be upset, depending on the church, of course, but upset nonetheless. And that's just one example of what this overlay would begin to address and hold people accountable to. And it's important given the daily disrespect towards Kanaka as if we don't belong here and our nuisances like gnats. It's one small step for us now as we're looking at it and deliberating, but it's a giant step forward for our kupuna that have been waiting for our advocacy and for our support. And for our mo'o who are looking to us for guidance on how to maintain long-standing practices and our connection to our lahui and our aina. And I thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Member Kama.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Furtado, for your testimony. So you mentioned in your testimony that, as a renter, you're really looking forward to hopefully being a homeowner one day. So my question to you is, as we deliberate on this item regarding the 20-year deed restriction, would you be open to having, if you were able to purchase a home, would you be able to say, okay, if there's a 30-year deed restriction?
Without hesitation. When we plant, and when we prepare the aina, right? It's not just for what I'm going to do or what I'm going to make off of it, but it's 7 generations down the line, and so I want some place to do that with.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Chair, very much. Appreciate it. Aloha ahuiho.
Ahuiho. Mahalo.
Any more questions? If not, thank you very much, Ms. Furtado. Next testifier.
Chair, the next person signed up to testify is Kaniloa Kamaunu, to be followed by Lee Kamekona.
Hello, my kako, council, and chair.
Hello.
Kaniloa Kamaunu from Wai'i. So I'm reflecting on Bill 154, I believe, the culture overlay. It was something that, I represent Malamaka Kaniloa as well as Lindo, recognized descendant from Wai'i. Malamaka Kaniloa for years, with others, not to say that we're the only ones, with others have, held signs, have gone through all these meetings, whether it be state or county, to advocate for the protection of not only our iwi, but the lepo itself. People forget that the rest of the person is in the lepo. When all that breaks down, those things turn back into the earth and mixes up with the lepo. We only think about the iwi, but the iwi is not what makes up a human being. It's the spirit that's in that being, as well as the flesh and the blood that's in that being. So when they holla, all those things go into the lepo. And like even the English saying is, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And you will return unto that. Well then, we're not only talking about just the iwi being sacred, but the lepo. That's the rest of our kupuna, the rest of our ancestors. So for us to say that the place is sacred is because we know that when winds blow, it moves the lepo, it moves the dirt. It doesn't stay there. So that place is sacred because the ano, essence of the person, is there. Malamaka Kaniloa has fought for this with the position of the county archaeologists. I really wanted more oversight on actually a committee that oversee archaeology itself, because they become part of this problem. What we have right now is what we have. And that overlay becomes important because you start to bring out the history. Imagine that the pu'one, anywhere under on Kamakao's description, anywhere from 100 to 300 feet. Where do we see that pu'one now? Below our feet. We stand on it now, the top of the pu'one. Because of such desecration, because of such degradation and no foresight of what that place meant. The molelo. How am I supposed to say that these battles of Kakanilua and other battles were held in the pu'one when the pu'one isn't there? So we need to, I'll just take a second or so. How do we describe that to our mopuna? It's no longer there. So this will secure that this degradation doesn't continue and that we don't have to hold signs, or I don't have to walk around my skeleton or drive around with it on my car, so people get the gist of what we say. Mahalo.
Thank you. Members, questions? If not, thank you very much. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, the last person we have signed up to testify during this testimony period is Lee Kamekona.
Carol Lee.
Lee, we see that you're connected to the meeting and you are unmuted, but we can't hear you. Chair, shall I do last call for the time being?
Yes.
So we'll do last call. There is an individual requesting to testify.
I'll stall him till she can get to the microphone. JC Law from. Right, James. ER 22-122. Don Guzman versus County of Maui. Don Guzman, I believe, was born here, but I think he's like Filipino origin. I don't know what happy birthday is over there. Haole makahiki ho, they say in Hawaiian. He just had a birthday last week. And he goes to Roman Catholic Church, last I heard. There's a story in the Bible about Joseph. His brothers sold him out because he was jealous of him because he was the favorite son. And he turned out he was working for this guy, and he turned out a really good worker. But the wife of the boss man, the master, didn't like. I mean, she liked him too much, and she wanted to have sex with him, and took him in, tried to get him to go in the bedroom with her, and he didn't want to do it.
JC, what is this about? Wait.
CR 22-122.
Okay, what you're talking about has nothing to do with this case.
It does.
I don't think so. What you're talking
You're
about
the chair.
personal information. This is
This is
just about a case.
This is a male-female thing.
No, we're talking about his case.
If you want me to speed things up, I can continue or just go.
Well, you don't have to give such personal information. Let's put it that way.
Well, I was not for the people that don't read the Bible and the story of Joseph. The woman accused him, and it wasn't true, and then he got fired by the man. So that's why I was trying to bring it up. And Akua makes roosters crow for a reason.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, members? If not, thank you very much. Did Lee come back on?
Chair, we did hear something come through from Lee, so we'll call her again. Lee, is
Can
your
you
time to
guys
testify?
Can you hear me?
That's
Yes.
Yes. Ah, perfect. Okay. Hala mai. Aloha kakayaka yako kako. Lono ikamakahiki. My name is Lee Kamekona. I am not a paid lobbyist. However, I am a member of Malamaka Kaniloa, Ho'oponopono o Maikena, Ahamoku o Wailuku, and our common denominator is the protection and preservation of our history, traditions, and cultural and archaeological sites. I believe this cultural overlay bill is a step forward towards our collective mission. It allows developers to see if their project site may have any potential cultural impacts, which in turn would save them money and time from possible interventions and contested cases. I kako the testimonies of Keaumoku, Noelani, and Kaniloa, and will not repeat, but will add, in the current Wailuku Garage parking site, there have been 5 of our EV kupuna who have been disinterred. So in saying this, I would like to see a bill passed which coincides with this proposed cultural overlay bill to put a timeline on how old a previously done AIS can be used. In other words, for example, a 20-year-old AIS done by, say, 2 previous owners shall not be used, obviously, because topographically, much can be changed, as we know, in the blink of an eye. Look at how the Aina of Kaua'ula in the west side has changed due to the current fire. With reference to the housing deal, I am truly in support of owner-occupied workforce housing being held in perpetuity to help our Kanaka families to live in their homeland. Mahalo to this council for providing, caring, and listening to our voices. Hana mai ka'i. Mahalo. Kia kupu. Have a beautifully blessed Maui Day.
Mahalo. Questions, members? If not, thank you very much. May we have the next testifier?
Chair, there are a couple of other testifiers who have signed up. The next person signed up to testify is Thomas Croly, to be followed by Zhantell Lindo.
Aloha Council, Tom Croly, testifying on my own behalf. I want to make comment on Bill 192. This appears to be a new introduction of a bill related to real property tax exemption, specifically for the long-term rental category. I anticipate that this bill is going to be asked to be brought up at today's meeting for discussion. And I kind of object to that idea. I fully understand that this is time sensitive, that if you don't pass a bill related to this before the end of the year, next year everything stays the same and you can't make the changes. And in general, I am supportive of the intent of this bill and of what I read in it right now. But this is not the way to make legislation. And this council has done this repeatedly this year, where the public doesn't have the opportunity to digest these bills and give them consideration and go through the proper committee work first and then first reading at council and get the proper posting and so forth. So as much as I would like to see some action taken to ensure that properties that are being granted the long-term rental exemption are the right properties, I do think that the process that we go through to get to that should be followed correctly, and you shouldn't jam this bill through as I anticipate. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's going to be referred to committee as it should be. But that's the whole other problem. I can't prepare testimony for you because I don't even know what's going to happen with this right now. But if the plan is that this bill is going to be discussed at council today, and if you're going to ignore my recommendation that it be referred to committee, then be sure to have all of the personnel from real property tax there to clearly tell you how all these changes would be administrated. Because again, I can tell you from having chaired the Real Property Tax Appeal Board that the administration of these bills oftentimes is quite different than what the intent of council was. So unless you put on the record what your intent is, you may not find that it is administrated in the same way that it was intended when it was, brought through council. So thank you, Chair. Again, I don't know what's going to happen on 192. Maybe everything I'm saying is irrelevant because you're just going to refer it to committee, but that's what I would like to see you do. Aloha.
Okay, thank you. Questions, members? If not, Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. Aloha, Mr. Croly. Mahalo for your testimony. I didn't hear any specific concerns about the bill itself. And I remember that you did testify at the Budget Committee previously when I presented on the amendments that came from the department. So to clarify, do you have any specific concerns about the amendments that are proposed in the bill itself?
I read the amended bill, because it's not an amendments to bills, right? You're not submitting it that way. You're submitting this as a new bill, correct? And the changes that I read through this morning, I don't know that all of them were discussed at the last meeting. Maybe I missed it. I don't know. But I just don't have enough time to really think it through and say, all right, this means this. Plus, I would like to have the department say, this amendment means we will do this. And then once they say that, then I can understand how it would be administrated and how it would be put in place. But at this moment, I do understand the intent of the amendments, and I am supportive of the intent of the amendments. But again, I don't know for sure how that would play out in the real world, if you will. The one thing that I was concerned about that is not in this bill, and perhaps could be addressed when we set tax rates, is I observed that there is a property in McKenna who is getting a $130,000 reduction in their property taxes because they said, oh, we're a long-term rental. Now, maybe it's a legitimate long-term rental. Maybe it's a small portion of that property. I don't know which. But is it the council's intent to grant one single taxpayer a $130,000 tax reduction? I don't know. That seems to me a bit absurd.
Okay, I think you may have lost service.
Oh,
you were frozen.
no, I
Or did you
stopped
just?
speaking. Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. You looked frozen. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, so those proposed amendments to the code were addressed in the meeting. Mahalo, Mr. Croly. Mahalo, Chair.
Wow.
Any more questions? Any more questions, members? If not, thank you very much, Mr. Croly. Next testifier.
The next person signed up to testify is Zhantell Lindo, to be followed by Erin Wade.
Aloha and good morning, Council and Council Chair. Thank you for this opportunity. I would just like to testify really fast on County Communications 22-282. And it's basically just the Department of Housing and Human Concerns notifying you of a grant award for the Section 8 program. I wanted to just thank the ladies and the gentlemen in the Section 8 program. I work intimately with them, and I think sometimes there are unsung heroes. And I just wanted to give one big prop to that division of the housing. I've seen them in action. I watched them work tirelessly to get our people into housing. And sometimes those worker bees don't get the attention that they need. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge all of those wonderful men and women and their supervisors for the great work they do that warrants us the continued support of Section 8 funding through HUD. The second thing I wanted to testify on is CR 22-120. I'm so grateful as I watched this come through that Molokai had the foresight to include it in our community plan long time ago. That the cultural overlay was definitely our way as a community of securing the things that were important to us. And I've heard a lot and support everything that everybody said prior to me, but I wanted to highlight two additional things. One, there is a portion of property on by the Lady of Sorrow Church in our Mana'e area of our island where the road is falling in. And there has been constant talk about how we're going to fix it. And one of the things that is scary is that I found that when Shifty, because they're a state-run organization, when a when a legislator evokes or asks the governor to put on a state of emergency, Shifty becomes exempt from the process of mitigating that emergency protocol. And so all the potential intended cultural and archaeological protection methods that we put in, and we have faith in that department to provide for our people and our aina, are now exempt from the process of planning for mitigation. So when I look at cultural overlays that are put in our community plan and also a resolution like this, it makes me feel more secure that there's an added layer of protection, and I really love the wording, that it's to preserve cultural resource and promote careful planning. And I think that's what's really important. The second thing is in line with that. I've been screaming and yelling to the top of my lungs for the longest time that we live on islands. And as much as we need affordable housing and we're not going to ever build ourselves out of the problem. But the one component that has been missing is our careful and prioritized attention to our natural resources. And under our cultural overlay, what happens is we're forced as planners and decision makers in a community to take into account our indigenous Kanaka wisdom from the people who had a place once upon a time that had no disease, no predators, no poisonous plants, all the things that were introduced. Why? Because there was a way of their wisdom that found this importance of planning the things they were doing as they malamada aina and took careful consideration that the resources were not being depleted while we were trying to build up according to our own need and our own wants. And so I just want to thank you for that opportunity. Mahalo.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the testifier? Not, thank you very much. May we have the next testifier?
Chair, the next person signed up to testify is Erin Wade.
Good morning, council members. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity. I just wanted to quickly clarify some testimony that was made that iwi kupuna were disinterred at the parking structure site, which is not correct. As you know, you folks provided additional funding so that those iwi kupuna could be preserved in place. And that is what has happened. So I just wanted to make sure that that was known and clarified on the record.
Any questions, members? If not, thank you very much, Ms. Wade.
Thank you.
Chair, there are no other individuals signed up to testify during this testimony period, so we'll do a last call. If there is anyone else who wants to testify at this time, please identify yourself now. I repeat, last call.
Okay, members, any objections?
Can I provide a little clarification also?
Ms. Six has already testified on Committee Report 22-120.
You'll be coming back later as a resource person. Yeah.
I was looking at some of the stuff in the chats, and I just wanted to make a clarification, but I can come back. It's not a problem.
Okay. Members, any objections to taking a 10-minute break? No objections?
No objections.
Yes, Ms. Paulton.
I thought we can't take a 10-minute break after the testimonies, pal.
We're coming back and taking more testimony.
Is there more testimony?
There always is more testimony.
Okay, 10-minute break.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
my bad.
Yeah, Mr. Rotz, is there a problem with us taking, because we will resume testimony after the 10-minute break. I mean, in other words, testimony is ongoing throughout the whole meeting.
Thank you, Chair. You can take a recess whenever you want, but I think maybe the point Councilmember Paulton was making that you can't close a portion of testimony until you've started to deliberate on the relevant section of the meeting agenda.
However, the testimony is still open throughout,
Chair.
no matter what. So we can take a 10-minute break then. Okay? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. Members, 10 minutes would be 10:49. Okay? Recess.
Recording has stopped.
Will the council meeting of November 18th please reconvene? It is approximately 10:58. Please continue, Mr. Clerk.
Chair, proceeding with testimony on the setting of the consent calendar. Chair, right now there are currently no individuals signed up to testify on the setting of the consent calendar, so we'll do a last call. If there is anybody who wants to testify on this, please identify yourself now. I repeat, last call. Chair, no one has indicated that they'd like to testify on this.
Members, any objections to proceeding with the rest of the agenda?
No objections.
No
Ms.
objection.
Clerk?
Chair, shall we close testimony on the setting of the consent calendar?
Yes.
If there are no objections from the body.
No objections.
No objection.
Good. Very good.
Then, Chair, at this time, the body may set the consent calendar.
Okay. So wouldn't you be doing that part?
Chair, just for the body's information, the members can set the consent calendar at this time, but members can also pull items up from the consent calendar if they so choose before setting it.
All right, members, why don't you call up the items so that they know if they want to pull out any items.
Chair.
Vice Chair Rons Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. So we're setting it. We're not. The next thing we would do is take action on it, and that's when the clerk would call up each of the items. So we would set it first, and then we would then take action.
Okay. All right, members, at this time, we will set the consent calendar. As a reminder, the calendar can still be adjusted even after it is set. Are there any requested changes to the consent calendar at this time? Okay. No objections. The calendar is set. Members, before proceeding, I am notifying you that I will be enforcing Council Rule 9F. No member may speak more than twice on any pending motion. Members may speak for 1 minute during both opportunities. Right.
Chair, proceeding with testimony on items in the consent calendar. At this time, no one has signed up to testify on any items in the consent calendar. We'll do a last call. If anyone does want to testify on any of these communications, please identify yourself now. I repeat, last call. Chair, no one else has indicated that they'd wish to testify on any of these items.
Members, are there any objections to closing public testimony and accepting written testimony for items in the consent calendar?
Objections.
No objections.
Okay. Objections? Okay. Chair, Mr. Clerk?
Chair, proceeding with the consent calendar. You have before you County Communication 22-281 from the Director of Housing and Human Concerns, transmitting a copy of the Notice of Grant Award from the State of Hawaii Executive Office on Aging for the Nutrition Services Incentive Program in the amount of $33,712. County Communication 22-282 from the Director of Housing and Human Concerns, transmitting a copy of the Notice of Grant Award from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the Section 8 Housing Program in the amount of $153,592. County Communication 22-283 from the Director of Housing and Human Concerns, transmitting a copy of the Letter of Intent from the State of Hawaii Executive Office on Aging for the Kupuna Care Program in the amount of $1,142,917. County Communication 22-284 from the Director of Finance, transmitting 2 reports on the settlement of claims as of September 30th, 2022. County Communication 22-285 from the Director of Finance, reporting on temporary transfers and loans from the General Fund and Department of Water Supply Revenue Fund to the General Obligation Bond Series Fund as of September 30th, 2022. And County Communication 22-286 from the Deputy Director of Water Supply, transmitting the Department of Water Supply's monthly source and groundwater use reports for the month ending October 2022.
Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez?
Mahalo, Chair. I move to file all items on the consent calendar except CCs 22-284 and 22-285 for referral to BFED.
Second.
Okay, let me just write that down. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to file all the items as read by the clerk except for CC 22-284 and CC 22-285. Any discussion on this motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now I have to count. Mr. Clerk, I see everybody except Member Sugimura?
Yes, Chair. We do not see Member Sugi.
Okay. So 8 ayes, 1 excused, motion carries. Oops. Mr. Clerk.
So, Chair, just confirming that CCs 22-284 and CCs 22-285 will be referred to the BFED committee?
Yes.
Okay. Then, Chair, proceeding with committee reports. You have before you from your Affordable Housing Committee. Apologies. We have to do testimony. Proceeding with testimony on committee reports. Chair, the first person signed up to testify on committee reports is an anonymous testifier at the South Maui District Office, to be followed by Lahela Aiwohi.
South Maui District Office. Oh, I recognize Mr. Anonymous. Aloha.
Aloha, Chair Lee and County Council members. I am testifying as an individual, Aole Inoa, today on agenda item CR 22-120, which is Bill 154, the culture overlay. And I concur with all the testimonies that have been given in support of passing this bill on first reading, and I hope we do that. I really think this is a win-win situation. I can't see any downside to it. It's a win-win for our Kihei Makena community plan. because it helps to implement the goals and objectives and policies in that plan under culture resources, which would be page 23 and 24, which would be to pull that up very quickly. Identify, preserve, protect, and restore significant historical and cultural sites, and implement a historical cultural district overlay ordinance to provide protection for areas of significant archaeological, historic, and cultural resources. Long overdue, and this action would help implement, passing this bill would help implement these actions. I think it's win-win for everybody, Kanaka, non-Kanaka, who have been involved with the historic preservation review process to make it more pono by informing it with this database. I think it would be a win-win situation for planners, for developers, and their consultants, because I think it would really streamline the permitting process and cut down on costs, especially legal costs when it comes to having to intervene or get involved in contested case hearings or settlement discussions and go to court. I see that happen a lot, especially in my area, because folks feel that the cultural archaeological assessments are not adequate. So they have to resort to litigation in order to make sure that things are done in a pono way. So all the cultural, the only thing the database does is help people to look at the land in a different way. So if I told you I had a PhD in rocket science from MIT, you would look at me differently, right? If you knew a piece of land had a high density of historic properties, you would look at that land differently, even though it was barren looking and it looked like a wasteland, like nothing was there. But in any case, I don't have a PhD in rocket science from MIT, but you did look at me maybe differently for a few seconds. And so that's the whole point of having this database, to look at things with different eyes. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify anonymously today. And aloha.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the testifier, the anonymous testifier? If not, thank you very much.
Chair, the last person we have signed up to testify in committee reports is Lahela Aiwohi in the chambers.
Aloha, Chair Lee. Aloha, Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez and council members. Mahalo for your time and the opportunity to testify today. My name is Lahela Aiwohi, and I am a paid lobbyist, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Hawai'i Hotel Alliance. This morning, I'm testifying on CR 22-120, or Bill 154, the cultural overlay. First off, I'd like to say thank you, and thank you for the hard work that you guys put into this bill. I do understand that it's probably been about the last 2 years that the committee has been working on it. And I do appreciate the intent. I think that's the first thing that I like to express, is that the intent of a cultural overlay, as stated by previous testifiers, is well needed. I do also believe that there's some revisions that could be made to make this a little bit, or a little better, and to avoid any upcoming or any legal challenge that may come up due to how the overlay is written as is. I hear the supporters of the bill, or those who testified prior to me, that, due to the lack of due diligence, I guess, or maybe lack of staffing by Shifty, that this is kind of what is pushing this forward, so that we can have the appropriate needs done to provide a proper cultural overlay. Unfortunately, this wasn't on my radar until viewing the latest version of the bill. I believe when discussion started regarding this bill, it really fit the definition of an overlay. But where it is today, I understand that it's been changed quite drastically, where now there may be some legal issues that the county may be challenged with. On behalf of HHA, we have some proposed revisions, as I mentioned earlier, that we'd appreciate consideration of implementing these proposals. I believe the revisions will assist in avoiding unintended consequences. Some of the questions that I do have is, one, if we look at how the review and process are on all the discretionary and the ministerial permits, having just one person review it, would that speed up the process, or would that actually increase the delay or the length of time being taken as is now? There's no time frame right now. Or the second thing is there's no time frame or deadline on the review of the permits. So we'd like to discuss that. I think that's important, putting a deadline on it instead of leaving it open-ended. And then we believe that having the CRC participate will provide a venue for some kind of public venue to participate. So if there is the opportunity to talk to any of the council members, we'd really appreciate that. So mahalo for your time.
Thank you. Questions, members? No questions. Thank you.
I believe Councilmember Sinensi.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see his hand. Okay, it kind of blends in with the clouds. Member Sinensi.
Mahalo, Chair, and mahalo, Ms. Aiwohi, for your testimony this morning. Just curious, is the group that you represent contemplating any legal challenges? Bill?
Not at this time. I believe that hopefully we're able to discuss or have some discussion to avoid any of that.
Okay, any other questions? Member Molina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Aloha, Ms. Aiwohi. So again, just to clarify, so the concerns from the organization is about just having more people involved in the review process rather than just one person, right?
Basically, I think what we see is that there is putting more layer of governance on this, which to us, we see it as delaying the process. So I believe that we do need the cultural overlay. I think I'd be remiss, like I said earlier, if I say we didn't need it. I believe we do. I think we need to tighten up on the language that is currently written and probably provide some kind of venue to have some input.
So the additional eyes instead of just one. Okay, yeah. All right. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Any more questions, members? If not, thank you very much.
Mahalo.
Yes.
Chair, the next person signed up to testify is Junya Nakoa.
Hey, how's it? I'll talk about 120. Yo, wait, you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, shoot. Yeah, the overlay. You know, you heard all the Kanakas, they talk and all that stuff. They're the guys that really know about this. So I support them all the way. You know what? As Hawaiians, we always get challenges, legal challenges that we gotta deal with. Like with developers kicking us Hawaiians off our own land like that. So whatever challenges come from anybody, yeah, we go take them on. That's all. So I support the 120 for the overlay. We get plenty smart Kanakas who can go battle those buggers. Get power down. We go do the 119. There's someone with the kind of the deed. A lot of us, like me, the house I stay in right now, bruh, I've been here 45 years in this house. You know what I mean? So, there are plenty Kanakas out there, is that the longer we stay in the house, the better we can give to our kids and all of that, all the good stuff, yeah? So, if you're going to get this affordable housing stuff and, for the owner occupancy, and all that kind of stuff, it's only going to better us Kanakas. You'll get plenty of us who don't like going nowhere, who love this place. You get stupid guys out there like kick us off our properties, yeah? As Kanakas, like we're not going no place. So that's why I support this baga. And so owner occupancy, yes sir. And also the deed. Like I said before, make it 50 years. I don't care. Longer the better. I almost reached 50 in my house, so Yes, sir. Okay, Apo.
Thank you. Questions, members? No questions. Thank you, Junya.
Okay, you guys
Next
have a good day.
testifier. You too.
Chair, the next person signed up to testify on committee reports is Faith Chase.
Aloha Chair, aloha Council. Really quickly, I am just testifying in support of CR 22-119 and also just wanted to extend my support for 22-120. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chase. Any questions, members? If not, next testifier.
Chair, there are currently no other individuals signed up to testify on committee reports, so we'll do last call at this time. If there is anybody else who would like to testify on a committee report and has not done so yet, please identify yourself now. I repeat, last call. Chair, no one has identified themselves to testify.
Members, are there any objections to closing public testimony and accepting written testimony for committee reports?
No objections.
No objection.
No objections, so ordered. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, proceeding with committee reports. You have before you from your Affordable Housing Committee, Committee Report 22-119, recommending that Bill 103, CD1 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance amending Sections 2.96.030E and 2.96.060B, Maui County Code, relating to residential workforce housing deed restrictions and resale, be passed on first reading and be ordered to print.
Member Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I move to adopt the recommendations in Committee Report 22-119.
Second.
Moved by Member Johnson, seconded by Member Molina to approve committee recommendations in Committee Report 22-119. Discussion, Member Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Your committee met on August 18th, October 18th, and November 3rd, 2022, and discussed Bill 103. Bill 103's purpose is to amend residential workforce housing deed restriction provisions to require units to be sold to owner-occupants in perpetuity and to increase the deed restrictions for affordability. Under Maui County Code, the deed restriction periods are 10, 8, and 5 years for ownership units in the below moderate, moderate, and above moderate income group categories, respectively. Your committee discussed the need for residential workforce housing units to remain affordable for as long as possible and determined that a 20-year deed restriction for all categories of workforce housing ownership units would help to maintain house affordability and increase housing availability. Bill 103 would also require residential workforce housing units to be owner-occupied in perpetuity. That means that even after the deed restriction, affordability has ended and the unit is offered to purchase at market rate, it still must be owner-occupied. As provided in Maui County Code, homeowners may appeal to the Department of Housing and Human Concerns should they need a waiver of the owner-occupied requirement, such as for medical conditions or temporary relocations for work. Bill 103 would add financial hardship to those special circumstances, but in those cases, it would be limited to a one-time waiver for up to 2 years maximum. And in all cases, any unit that is not owner-occupied due to waiver must be offered as a long-term rental in the same or lower income qualified category at the time the unit was purchased. This would include households participating in the Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 program. Your committee expressed support for Bill 103 and its potential to provide greater housing affordability, security, and stability for our local workforce and full-time residents. Your committee voted 5-2 to recommend passage of Bill 103, CD1, parentheses 2022, on first reading. I respectfully request the council members' support of my motion.
Discussion, Member Paulton.
Thank you, Chair. This bill was a long time coming and on multiple efforts for me. I would like to propose an amendment to section 2.96.060B, 2A, B, and C to substitute 30 years for 20 years in response to the overwhelming testimony in support of that.
I second the motion.
Moved by Member Paulton, seconded by Pro Tem Kama on that amendment, changing the years for the deed restriction. Discussion, Member Paulton.
Thank you, Chair. We are giving great subsidy to get truly affordable housing. And the biggest challenge we have is keeping that affordable housing in the affordable housing inventory as places for people to live. And this is only for those houses that have been subsidized. If people want to make speculative investment, they can still do that with all their own money. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Member Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to rise in support of this and thank Councilmember Paulton for that. We listen to the people and we're going to act on it. And I think that's what a good body does. Mahalo, Chair.
Any more discussion? Member Pro Tem Kama.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member Paulton, for beating me to the punch because, you know, we did hear testimony this morning of the, from one testifier I was really listening to. She said, if I could, I would. And let's see if we can do this for her and many others like her that are waiting in the wings. So thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member Johnson, for the support. Thank you, Member Paulton, for bringing the amendment forward.
Any more discussion? Let's have roll call, please.
Chair, proceeding with a roll call vote on the amendment. Councilmember Shane Senensi.
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Molina.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly Takaya King.
Aye.
Councilmember Gabe Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Tamara Paulton.
Aye.
Councilmember Yukile Sugimura.
Excused.
Presiding Officer Pro Tempore Tasha Kama.
Yes.
Council Vice Chair Kiani Rollins Fernandez.
Aye.
And Council Chair Alice L. Lee.
No.
Chair, there are 7 ayes, 1 no, 1 excused. Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Clerk.
Chair, the main motion as amended is on the floor.
Any more amendments? No more amendments? Then roll call.
Chair, proceeding with a roll call vote on the main motion as amended. Councilmember Shane Senensi.
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Molina.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly Takaya King.
Aye.
Councilmember Gabe Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Tamara Paulton.
Aye.
Councilmember Yukile Sugimura.
Excused.
Presiding Officer Pro Tempore Tasha Kama.
Yes.
Council Vice Chair Kiani Rollins Fernandez.
Aye.
And Council Chair Alice Lee.
No.
Chair, there are 7 ayes, 1 no, 1 excused. Motion carries.
Okay. Before you go on, I just want to ask Member King, what time is it over there in Japan?
Let's see. I got my computer set to your time, so let me take a look at my phone here. It is 6:24 a.m.
Oh my goodness.
The sun has just come up and we can see Mount Fuji from our window, our hotel window.
Okay. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, you have before you from your Agriculture and Public Trust Committee, Committee Report 22-120 recommending the following. 1. That Bill 154 CD1 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending Titles 2, 16, 18, 19, and 20 Maui County Code to establish cultural overlay map and cultural sensitivity designations, be passed on first reading and be ordered to print. And 2. That County Communication 22-266 be filed.
Mr. Senensi.
Mahalo, Chair. Move to adopt the recommendations in Committee Report 22-120.
Second.
Moved by Member Senensi, seconded by Member Johnson to approve the recommendations in Committee Report 22-120. Discussion, Mr. Senensi.
Mahalo, Chair. Members, this is the end of a very long 2-year process to create the framework for a cultural overlay map and permit review process. We've had 6 committee meetings, and there were 6 Planning Commission, CRC, and HANA Advisory Committee meetings on this very legislation. For the past 2 years, we've worked closely with Dr. Six, the first county archaeologist in the state, with Planning Director McLean and her staff, and former Public Works Director Dagdag Andaya, also with the current Director Molina, as well as the Corporation Counsel attorneys Stephanie Chen, Gail Thompson, Viola Whitaker, and Michael Hopper on this bill. In fact, the bill we are voting on today was sent to us by the Planning Department. And members, these are the people and the department heads that will be administering the bill. Their input and support have been invaluable. The mayor supports the mapping project and has created a staff GIS position to assist us with the mapping. He also used Dr. Six to review his own and other county projects to make sure cultural resources are known prior to any decision making. We've had great support from everyone involved because this bill benefits property owners, developers, Kanaka Maoli, and all of Maui Nui. Once created, property owners will be able to access the mapping for information prior to purchasing property. Developers will use the map to design their projects so they are not stopped midway through and then face costly delays. The bill helps the Native Hawaiian community who time after time have seen their ancestors' iwi kupuna dug up and desecrated, their cultural resources destroyed in the name of careless planning. This bill helps government officials who will spend less time dealing with projects that didn't have the information they needed to plan properly. This bill protects our residents, future generations, and even visitors who come here because of our rich culture. We have been directed by our general plan to preserve what makes us special and not to erase our past, and this is how we do it. You've heard from developers and their representatives that benefit from the existing broken review process. They'll protest and try to tell us the bill doesn't work. However, the bill works to highlight problem areas and prevents careless desecration of cultural resources and iwi kupuna. We have worked extensively with Corporation Counsel. The process has been thoroughly discussed and vetted for legality. I understand that change can be threatening, but in this case, it's only threatening to those who want to continue to operate without knowledge, cultural resources, and to continue to desecrate and erase our cultural past. Chair, your committee agreed that a cultural overlay map and cultural sensitivity designation will further the principal goal of the county policy, a countywide policy that states that Maui County is unique in the world and will preserve, celebrate, and protect for generations to come. Your committee voted 6-0 to recommend passage of Bill 153 CD1 2022 on first reading, and I respectfully ask the members' support of my motion. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Pro Tem Kama.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Member Sinensi. Although I do not sit on the APT committee, I trust that the members of that committee always do well for our community as well as for our own Kanaka Maoli. I'm really impressed with this cultural overlay, but I'm also listening to what one testifier said this morning, Ms. Lahela Aiwohi, about wanting to have conversations with us as council members. And I don't know if that ever took place with any of them. I know I did have a conversation with her. And like she mentioned earlier, that she caught wind of this late and she looked at the bill and had some revisions. So I want to be able to see how we can, if Chair Sinensi and members are open to hearing those revisions. Because if we're going to do something for our people, let's make it sure that it's done properly and the way it should be for the betterment of our entire community. So, Chair, if that could happen, I'd be open to that, and if the members are too.
Well, members, are you open to allowing Ms. Aiwohi to be a resource person? Yes, Mr. Sinensi.
May I respond to Pro Tem Kama?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair.
And mahalo for Ms. Aiwohi's testimony, and yes, she's exactly right. She's just coming in at the tail end of 2 years of work, and she did bring up the CRC, and I just wanted to share during our deliberations about the CRC and the planning department agreed to have our county archaeologists be the reviewer. Within our discussions, the CRC does not possess any archaeological expertise, so they would be able to only opine on just a map, nothing else. They often comment on cultural architecture, but nothing to do with archaeology. Currently and lately, the CRC has been hard to get a quorum to have their meetings through. So that is the reasons why we didn't go through the CRC. We felt that it would even make the process longer.
Thank you, Member Senensi, for that response. And thank you, Chair, for allowing me the opportunity to bring this forward. At the appropriate time, could we ask Director McLean her comments on this?
Well, now would be the time because we are discussing this item.
Okay.
Member King?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to support the motion and support this bill. We have been working on it for a long time. It's a little frustrating with organizations something like we've had meeting after meeting and then want to make last-minute changes. But I also want to share some that our not-so-anonymous testifier texted me, who has been on the CRC, Daniel Kanahele, and just reminding everybody that SHPD has been chronically understaffed and underfunded. We've had long delays and automatic approvals because of that understaffing, and Mr. Kanahele, as a former member of the CRC, welcomes the county archaeologists and the cultural overlay. I also wanted to thank Zhantell and Lindo for bringing up the fact that we did put the cultural overlay into the Molokai community plan. That was a big item for them, and we actually brought cultural experts over from Molokai to discuss the cultural overlay when we were reviewing the community plan there. So I think what's good for Molokai is good for Maui, especially. I mean, we've got a much bigger area here, and we are embroiled in lawsuits quite often. So this is going to help developers. This is going to help the groups that are concerned, that have stepping in and hopefully saving a lot of our local people money from having to invest in these lawsuits in order to protect the iwi kupuna and the coastal sites. So I'm in support, and I want to thank Councilmember Senensi for bringing this up early and often, and for having full discussions on the issue of the cultural overlay before we got to the point of the first reading. Thank you.
All right, I saw other hands. First of all, Member Sugimura, then Member Paulton, then Member Molina. That order.
Thank you.
Member
Thanks
Sugimura,
for having this meeting, members. So I'm just concerned that we're giving ultimate power to a person in our county, which is the county archaeologist. And by having it with the CRC to review, then you have a body, as you know, they're like us because everything they take up is then, part of the community to give input. So I believe that's my major concern about this. And that I think is too narrow, and that I believe that it may cause a delay in getting things done because we're asking one person to do a job that maybe requires more. So that's one thing that I'm concerned about at this point, and I think more discussion is needed. Thank you.
Member Paulton.
Thank you, Chair. I did have an opportunity to speak with Ms. Aiwohi as well and others prior to this meeting, and it caused me to rewatch the meeting, the committee meeting last night. And in the watching of it, I got refreshed in my mind that many of these concerns were addressed in committee. We're not delegating our authority to one county archaeologist. The county archaeologist, in reviewing the meeting video, will make recommendations based on data. And we, the decision makers or the appointed directors, will then either act on those recommendations or we won't act on the recommendations. We did add things that would be more transparent, that the recommendations, if not transmitted as part of a packet, would also be provided to the mayor and the council. So it's unfortunate that members who are not on the committee didn't take the time to watch the committee, and then maybe, or even the testifiers that testified against it. We need to be informed when we speak to items, and then it'll be better. Beyond that, I think, we have a veterans cemetery with a shrine status. We have, the honoree this morning that caretakes for the graves of the people that started the church. And nobody disagrees that those are wrong things. If it took a few more days or a few more weeks to ensure that those areas are preserved. So there's nothing different in people's bones. All people's bones look the same, and all people's bones should be respected. All people's churches should be respected. All people's cultural resources should be respected. That's all we're asking for. This is a bill that was put forward by our administration, which I don't think anyone would say is trying to stop developments. They're trying to do developments the right way, and I so appreciate that. So I will be standing in support of this bill.
Member Molina.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I want to thank Member Sinensi for all of his hard work. As he mentioned, 6 meetings, 2 years. There's been a lot of opportunity for input. And I appreciate Ms. Aiwohi's, she's doing her job, expressing the concerns of the people she represents. But, Madam Chair, we've had this discussion before on the issue of doing committee work at council. I'm not in favor of that. I think we need to move forward at this point. And certainly a returning member who would like to champion the concern that Ms. Aiwohi had expressed, it can be done next term to amend this legislation, assuming it passes out here today. So there's other ways. But to me, if we consider some amendment here or whatever's being proposed, that means we're doing committee work, and who knows, whatever amendment we consider and pass, it may result in this bill getting sent back to committee. I don't want to see that at this point, because this is a very significant legislation, because it's about dignity. It respects our host culture now and also in the past. So I stand in full support of this, Madam Chair. So I would like to take action, and I'm ready to vote on it, Madam Chair. Mahalo.
All right. Anyone else? Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. And mahalo, Member Sinensi, to all the department heads that Member Sinensi named, and to all the community members, including, Dr. Six, Ms. Ahia, those, I think at Malamaka Kaniloa, and others, particularly in Maui, Hikina, for advancing and moving this bill along. This bill did come before the Molokai Planning Commission, and as Member King mentioned, and Ms. Lindo explained in her testimony, that this cultural overlay is something that was identified as a priority and action item in the 2018 updated Molokai Community Plan. In 2008, there was a Mana'e GIS mapping project that they wanted completed so that we would be able to establish a traditional land use overlay. And so it's in Chapter 6, 82, Item 19, in our community plan to identify and protect Mana'e's numerous cultural and natural resources through the adoption of the traditional land use overlay designation. Member King was the chair of the planning committee at the time and made sure that our community's voices and priorities were memorialized in our community plan. And this cultural overlay bill does I guess make happen this traditional land use overlay and more, really. And not just for Mana'e, but for all of Molokai. And not just for Molokai, but all of Maui County, which I think is beautiful. Members Senensi attended a lot of those meetings. Like I said, I attended the Molokai Planning Commission meeting, and I know that Member Kama, she's always about anyone's voices not being included, and I appreciate that about her. But I know that Ms. Aiwohi is good at her job. And just as she saw that the cultural overlay bill was on this agenda, I'm sure she monitors other agendas and would have seen it in doing her due diligence. And so oftentimes, waiting until the last moment is a way to obstruct bills from moving forward. And Member Paulton did say that she, discussed this with Ms. Aiwohi. So the concerns that are being shared right now, have been discussed. And in committee, we discussed fully the amendments that were being proposed, the pros and cons of each amendment. And so due diligence has been done. And I fully support the passage on first reading of this bill today. Mahalo, Chair.
Anyone else? Member Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I also support this bill on first reading. I echo the sentiments of what my council members said. I thank Councilmember Senensi and the departments for coming up with this. I want to kind of add a little personal story I have of when I was young and I was maybe in my early 20s. I went to Okinawa, Japan to visit my family, and they asked me, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I kind of want to see my grandmother's father's haka. That's the turtleback tomb. That's the old Okinawan style tomb for samurai. And I wanted to, and nobody could remember where it was because our family has left so long ago. Our lineage is gone and cut from that island. We had to go searching. It took us a day to find it in the jungle. And you do what you do when you go to the haka. You light the incense, you crack a can of beer, and you pray to your ancestors. And do that. I was blessed to do that because that was still in existence. And I think of what's happening here and how we develop over these places that are sacred where people who are from here can't do that. And I was blessed to have done that. So that's why I think this bill will allow those folks who are of that place to say, I can go to see my lineage, my ancestors. And I think that's exactly what this bill should be helping our folks who live here to have that connection. So I felt that connection with my samurai great grandfather, and I would hope that people of these islands could do that themselves. So that's why I'm in support. Mahalo, Chair.
Okay, anybody else? Member Pro Tem Kama.
Thank you, Chair, for my last comment. Thank you very much, members, for your comments. I so do appreciate all of you and your commitment to serving our community, especially our indigenous community. I thank you, Member Molina, for reminding us about not doing committee work on council days. Sometimes that escapes me, but thank you very much. But members, I am always in support of whatever the body decides to do. I just heard something on the floor and I thought that I wanted to hear more of it. And if that's not what you all want, then I'm okay with that. But if it's okay with you, Chair, to invite Director McLean for her comments, if that's okay at this time.
Is Director McLean on the call? In the meantime, I see Corp Counsel Rochelle Thompson. Rochelle, can you give your comments?
Thank you very much, Chair, and my appreciation to Councilmember Sinense for the involvement. Over, as he said, the last couple of years, many of us have worked very closely on the bill, so we really appreciate that involvement and the intent of the bill. We have, just following up on the very last version of the bill, we have a couple of what we consider to be more clarifying recommendations. So I'll just go over them briefly if you don't mind. One of them is a follow-up on Dr. Six's testimony earlier. There are two places in the current bill that discuss site avoidance as one of the types of mitigation. And we wanted to clarify that our interpretation of that term site avoidance would be that it's consistent as referring to the specific historic site or burial site consistent with HRS 6E, and not site in a more broad sense as in the entire TMK or entire parcel or entire project area, that we're referring to a specific important site. So that's one of them. It's in terms of where that type of mitigation is mentioned. It's in 1946-050B and D. Secondly, we actually recommend removing the term site avoidance because it is a specific type of mitigation, and other types of mitigation aren't mentioned in the bill. So we don't think it needs to be called out and said because it's already a type of mitigation that could be recommended by the either the principal archaeologist or any of those reviewing agencies. The third thing, this is page 5 of your bill, 1946-050D, like dog. We recommend removing that subsection because it's duplicative. It's a little bit confusingly written, and it's duplicative of the basically broad authority in the section right above it, C, for the principal archaeologist to transmit either the report or information to basically anyone that she at this time feels is an important agency to be aware of and to request information and comment from. So we don't think that D needs to be in there, also because it's kind of confusingly written. And then last, and thank you for your patience with me, last is that there are several sections where the principal archaeologist may recommend permit or other conditions. And we're recommending that a time limit be included, and that's consistent with HRS 9113.5, which requires agencies to put reasonable time limits. So I don't know if 30 days is sufficient, 45, we're just recommending that a time limit be included in those sections. And I do have a red line. If anyone wants to see that, I could email it or share screen. Those are our recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sinense, are you going to respond to the Corp Council's comments, or?
Yes.
Or did you want to hear from Director McLean?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just for to respond to Ms. Thompson, we didn't want to. We wanted to keep the site location that she had mentioned on that first one. That was part of the outreach that we did with the community members, and they wanted to see that section of the bill to remain.
Okay, all right. Director McLean?
Good morning,
Director
Chair and committee members.
Morning.
I didn't hear the testimony earlier, but what I gather was there's a desire for these reviews to be conducted by the Cultural Resources Commission rather than the county archaeologist. That idea, gosh, for those of you who are in the committee meetings, this bill has gone through a number of different versions. And the version that was transmitted back to the council, back to the committee, was one that we supported, that the CRC reviewed. The CRC did not want to be more involved in this process. They did not want the makeup of their commission or the way that they function changed, which was also proposed in an earlier version. For the planning department, again, we talked yesterday and I think the day before too about streamlining the permit review process. Having the CRC do reviews rather than the principal archaeologist would certainly add time. Their agendas are very full as it is. They didn't want to be part of the review. We don't feel it's necessary. We think that'll be much simplified with the county archaeologist conducting the reviews. And so we would rather see the bill in its current form than to see changes that involved review by the CRC beyond what's already in the bill. Thank you, Chair.
Any more comments or questions? Member Alton?
I'd be okay with a 90-day review period, same as SHPT.
Members, reaction?
I can, oops.
Member Paulton, Member Kama.
Thank you, Chair. I concur with Member Paulton on the 90-day review.
Okay, yeah, you want to make a motion?
Chair?
Could Miss,
Yes,
I have my hand up. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Dr. Six put in the chat that it's 45 days, not 90.
Oh, I'm still okay with 90. Does she want 45? Miss Dr. Six?
45 is better than 90.
Oh, okay. Dr. Six, you want 45?
Ideally, it would move very quickly because what I'm doing is taking a quick look at the area, a quick look at our database, and making a really quick review, the same as SHPT, whether it goes to 6E or review, or if we can streamline the process and not send it 6E. So I think I can do it within 45, but if 90 is fine. I mean, because it's a new system and we're going to figure out all the glitches, we can see how fast I do it. But I did 3 yesterday in a matter of about 20 minutes for mayor's office. So it's not hard for me to take a look at what's proposed and look what's known about the landscape and create a really quick summary and recommendations to whatever body is asking me. But it's whatever you folks want. But when you said SHPT is 90, SHPT is supposed to be 45, although they do get bogged down. So the whole idea is I can streamline that hopefully, and we'll only send things to 6E review that need to be reviewed by them. And then we can
thank
do some
you.
stuff. Okay,
Thank
thanks.
Do you want to make a motion?
Yes, if Miss Thompson can direct me to the proper
Ms. Thompson.
section.
Ms. Thompson, are you on the call?
Sure. Yes. Do you mind if I share screen just very briefly? Otherwise, I could also just read out the sections. But if you'd like to see them, I can
Share
pop it up on
screen. Yeah.
Thank you. So hopefully everyone can see. I've got the bottom of page 5 up, section 2, 280B 110. And there at the end, this is the same language that we would recommend throughout. And right now I put 30, calendar days, but I didn't catch what amount of days you're looking at, whether it was 45 or 90. But at any rate, the language would be the principal archaeologist must provide recommendations no later than X amount of calendar
45.
days from 45. Okay, 45 from the date of transmittal, otherwise the principal archaeologist is deemed to have no recommendation. And that would be the same language that we'd recommend for, as you can see, the amendment to 1604C 160. Same here in section 4, 1626B 105. And also to the subdivision code 1808 100. That's down at the bottom in E. Let's see, I think that, there we go. 1968.
Are you getting all of this, Member Paulton, or do you want her to help you write all of these section numbers down?
I would like to change from the date of receipt to the date of the county archaeologist receiving it, because it can take considerable time to transmit the application from the mayor's office. Would that be possible?
Sure.
From the date of the county archaeologist receiving it. Then she can have 45 days.
45 calendar days from the date of. Oops.
Okay, are you ready for your amendment motion?
Sure. I move to amend the sections outlined by Corporation Counsel Thompson to read: the principal archaeologist must provide recommendations no later than 45 days, calendar days, from the date of receipt. Otherwise, the principal archaeologist is deemed to have no recommendation. And I would put that in all the sections.
Moved by Member Paulton, seconded by Pro Tem Kama.
That Ms. Thompson shared with us.
The information that Ms. Thompson shared with us. And for discussion, first, Member Paulton.
I'm pleased that we have Dr. Six on as a resource, and she can tell us how quickly that she can expedite the process. And so if 45 days is good with her, then it's good with me. Thank you.
Okay, Member Sinensi.
Yeah, I can refer to Dr. Six, but normally 90 days would be the preferential, only because 90 days from the receipt of transmittal. And Chair, other departments get more time than just 45 days. So for me, the 90 days was better from the receipt of transmittal. Thank you, Chair.
Any other discussion?
And it looks like Dr. Six is okay with 90.
I can accept that as a friendly amendment.
Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez.
Hello, Chair. I wanted to clarify, I'm supportive of 90 days. So on the amendment, it has calendar days and not business days. I don't know if Dr. Six would have a preference for calendar days versus business days.
Dr. Six?
Not if she works on non-business days. At least I hope she doesn't.
No, I think business days, but I can't imagine that I'm going to take 90 days to do a recommendation. So I think that it'd be okay to do either, whatever the body deems appropriate. But I know I don't work on the weekends unless there's inadvertent fines. Then I work on.
Ms. Thompson.
And I'd recommend that you use calendar days with something of that long of a duration. It's just a lot easier to apply that. You do business days if it's, 7 business days or less, just with a shorter quantity of days. But for 90 days, I would use calendar.
Anybody else? Maker of the motion, which one do you want?
I'd like 90 days, just, because she is a civil service worker and she's entitled to, all the vacation and sick leaves and things like that. It'd be great to have a secondary principal archaeologist, but I think 90 calendar days from the time she receives it is good. Thank you.
Everybody in favor of that? So the motion is, the time limit would be the 90 calendar days, as stated by the maker of the motion. Are you ready to vote on that amendment? Yeah, we had your second already, Member Kama. Any more discussion on this amendment? If not, do we need roll call? No? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Okay, I see 8 ayes. Member Sugimura, I'm sorry, I now see your head. Member Sugimura, did you vote? Okay, she's an aye. Okay, 9 ayes, 0 noes, motion carries. Now, are there any other amendments? All right, the main motion as amended. Do we need roll call? All those in favor of the main motion as amended, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
All ayes. 9 ayes, 0 noes, motion carries. Yes.
All members.
We're not sure how council.
Member Sugimura, how did you vote?
No.
Get roll call.
Chair, proceeding with a roll call vote on the main motion. Councilmember Shane Sinensi.
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Molina.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly Takaya King.
Aye.
Councilmember Gabe Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Tamara Paulton.
Aye.
Councilmember Yukile Sugimura.
Oh.
Presiding Officer Pro Tempore Tasha Kama.
Yes.
Council Vice Chair Kiani Rollins Fernandez.
Aye.
And Council Chair Alice L. Lee.
Aye.
Chair, there are 8 ayes, 1 no, motion carries.
All members.
Next. Chop chop.
Chair, you have before you from your Budget, Finance, and Economic Development Committee, Committee Report 22-121, entitled Recommending that Bill, You have before you Committee Report 22-121, recommending that Bill 150-2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance Amending Title III, Maui County Code, relating to the establishment of a parking revenue fund, be passed on first reading and be ordered to print.
Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo Chair, I move to adopt the recommendations in Committee Report 22-121.
Second, somebody. Moved by Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez, seconded by Member Paulton to approve the recommendations in Committee Report 22-121. And discussion, Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo Chair, your Budget, Finance, and Economic Development Committee met on November 2nd to discuss Bill 150-2022, which would amend Title III Maui County Code to establish a parking revenue fund for the county's parking operations, including maintenance, repair, security, safety improvement, equipment, beautification, expansion, staff compensation, parking facility, bond payments, and other related costs. Your committee notes that the parking program is intended to be financially self-sustaining, and any surplus funds may be used for maintaining or improving county parks, expanding and enhancing public transportation, pedestrian and bike infrastructure or programs, improving safety wayfinding or maintenance of neighborhood business districts, and protecting and acknowledging sensitive cultural and environmental sites. Your committee voted 9-0 to recommend passage of Bill 150-2022 on first reading. I respectfully ask for the members' continued support. Mahalo Chair.
Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
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 9 ayes, 0 noes, motion carries. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, you have before you from your Government Relations, Ethics, and Transparency Committee, Committee Report 22-122, recommending that Resolution 22-236 be filed.
Mr. Molina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move to adopt the recommendations of Committee Report 22-122.
Second.
Moved by Member Molina, seconded by Member Johnson To approve Committee Report 22-122, discussion, Member Molina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your Government Relations, Ethics, and Transparency Committee met on November 1st, 2022 to discuss Resolution 22-236. Resolution 22-236's purpose is to authorize the Department of the Corporation Counsel to settle the claim filed on April 23rd, 2021. The claim alleges the plaintiff's rights to privacy and due process under the U.S. Constitution were violated in accordance with 42 U.S.C. and 1983. The claim further alleges the plaintiff was discriminated against based on a disability in accordance with Hawaii revised statutes. The Corporation Counsel noted she was ordered by the court to convey a settlement proposal to the council, which she shared directly with council members via confidential transmittal. And your committee held an executive session meeting to discuss confidential information related to the claim. Your committee voted 8-0 to recommend filing of Resolution 22-236. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Member Sugimura? Aye. Okay, 9 ayes, 0 noes, motion carries. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, you have before you Committee Report 22-123, recommending that Resolution 22-117, entitled Amending Resolution 18-210 and authorizing the disposition of approximately 33.373 acres of county road property located in Laniopoko, Maui, Hawaii, to the Department of Transportation, State of Hawaii, for the Honoapi'ilani Highway Realignment Phase 1B-2 be adopted.
Member Molina.
Mahalo, Madam Chair. Move to adopt the recommendations of Committee Report 22-123.
Second. Moved by Member Molina, seconded by Member Johnson to approve Committee Report 22-123. Discussion, Mr. Molina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your Government Relations, Ethics, and Transparency Committee met on September 13th, 2022 and November 1st, 2022 to discuss Resolution 22-117. Bill 117's purpose is to amend Resolution 18-210 and approve the disposition of 33.373 acres of county road property described in and shown on Exhibits A-1 and A-2, conditioned upon the county's receipt of payment by the state of Hawaii in the amount of $1,251,798 for the additional acreage used for the Lahaina bypass in accordance with Section 3.44.020 of the Maui County Code. A representative from the Department of Finance noted Resolution 18-210 attached an incorrect map of the property as Exhibit 1 and provided detailed maps of the property in addition to the corrected maps attached to Resolution 22-117 as Exhibits A-1 and A-2. Your committee supported amending Resolution 18-210 and approving the disposition of the property, but expressed concerns about homeless encampments in the area. Your committee agreed to address the concerns under a separate discussion when the Department of Parks and Recreation and Department of Housing and Human Concerns could be consulted. Your committee eventually voted 9-0 to recommend adoption of Resolution 22-117. Mahalo, Madam Chair.
Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the Member Paulton.
Thank you. I just really hope that the county takes this money and cleans up the area. Thank you.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, 9 ayes, 0 noes, motion carries. Members, we're at K, resolutions. Do you want to take up K and M, or would you like to have lunch?
I'd like to take a break.
Lunch? All right, it's 12:09. Members, how about 1 hour? Is 1 hour enough? So we can.
Chair, 1:30.
1:30. Okay.
1:30. Thank you, Chair.
All right, members, we'll take a lunch break right now until 1:30.
Go.
Will the council meeting of November 18th, 2022, please reconvene. It is 1:36 p.m. and we have with us about 7 people, is it? Mr. Clerk, 1, 2.
Yes, sir. There are currently 6 members. Okay. We're back to 7 members.
Now 8. 8, 7. All right.
I don't
so
see-
we have member Sugimura offline, and who else?
Vice Chair is
Oh, the
present.
Vice Chair. Okay, that's right. That's right. She's coming. She's coming. All right, let's proceed with resolutions.
Yes, Chair. Proceeding with testimony on resolutions. First person we have signed up to testify is Mike Moran, to be followed by Michelle McLean.
Good afternoon, Chair Lee and council members. Mike Moran for the Kehoe Community Association. You may note that we changed our background today to a Willy Willy tree because we're talking about trees, not necessarily Willy Willies, but all trees. And this is on Resolution 258. We did notice in the agenda that the word tree is not mentioned in the item. Of course, it's mentioned in the details, but we found that out from some community members when we told them about the issue, and they said, we can't find anything about a tree in the agenda, so we had to give them the number. A couple of things that we look at it, we're hoping that you can do what it says on the agenda to pass it right on to the it says to the planning committees and also the South Maui and the Haiku community groups. Now, we're not sure. We have seen this happen before, and our understanding was that the council cannot directly send something to the regional committee meetings, committees. It can only send it to the planning commission, and then the planning commission makes that decision. And we have seen that the last two items that were South Maui issues that were sent to the planning commission, they declined to send them to us, even though they were housing projects in our district. So kind of disappointing, but that seems to be the way the rule is set up, that it's their decision. So whatever it is. But we're trying to get this expedited. And by happenstance, the CPAC, this past Wednesday at our meeting, much of this, of that part of updating our community plan was addressing this issue. And we had our county arborist there, and we had several community members who addressed it. And in the draft that the long range planning produced based on community input, there's scads of issues on trees, more trees, and this issue of canopies. So you can see there's a big concern in our community, in the South Maui community, about this, about what is happening. And people who live here, it's very obvious. You can go into most any parking lot, and that's what you see. What Ernie Rezents, the man who knows more about trees than anybody on Maui, said. That's what. We're hoping.
Go ahead, finish up, Mike.
We're hoping you can move this right on without going back to a committee, which would delay it further because there's a great community. Mahalo for the opportunity.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mike? If not, thank you very much. May we have the next testifier?
Chair, the last person signed up to testify on resolutions is Michelle McLean.
Director?
Chair and members, I submitted some testimony by email. I was actually hoping that you would file this item, but at a minimum, please refer it to committee. As my email testimony said, we've been there, done that. We've been through amendments to chapters 1224 and 19.36b. The existing language today was collaborative effort with the Parks Department and the Public Works Department, and came on the heels of the adoption of the Maui County Planting Plan. It doesn't mean I'm, certainly open to discussing it, but in terms of referring a bill to the planning commissions, the planning commissions don't need to review such a long and detailed bill that amends chapter 1224. That's not under their authority. So that could be separated out, and then just a bill relating to the parking code could go to them. When it comes to the amendments to 1936B, the parking code, and the canopy coverage requirement. We went through that in detail when the planting plan was adopted. We do not have the expertise to manage that kind of administration and enforcement. We do enforce against trees that are lopped off or improperly pruned. We're able to make that kind of assessment. But we're talking about a whole different level of a whole different role for the county. And again, it doesn't mean I'm opposed to that. It's just not something the planning department is equipped to handle. So that concept needs much more discussion. So again, I had asked that the bill be filed, but at a minimum, please refer it to committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Member King?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for being here, Michelle. Appreciate your input. What department if you're saying that this doesn't belong in the planning department, what department does it belong? Is it Public Works? Because you guys, if you want it sent to Public Works, is Public Works going to tell us to send it back to you?
Well, so when we're talking about Chapter 1224, again, this was a very long process working with Park and Public Works, determining who's responsible for which trees. And the Parks Department is responsible for trees in county parks. Public Works is responsible for trees, for street trees. And planning is responsible for trees in parking lots. When it comes to the health and maintenance of those trees, Parks contracts out because they have so many trees to take care of. Public Works also contracts out, but they now have the county arborist. You remember the county arborist used to be with the Parks Department, is now with Public Works. The arborist isn't responsible for the maintenance, but does go out to check on the health of trees, to advise the Public Works Department on whether they need a contractor to trim or remove. When it comes to parking lot trees, we're talking about private property. The maintenance of those trees is the responsibility of those property owners. So when it comes to assessing whether or not those trees are being properly maintained, there really isn't any department's responsibility. If that is something that you want the county to take on, I suppose we could get a contract for an arborist to monitor the health of parking lot trees. But right now, that's not something we're equipped to do, and certainly something that needs a lot more discussion.
I think this first came up when I was hearing, and came from the community, but we were hearing about the lack of the proper amount of trees in places like War Memorial. So it wasn't not just private parking lots that we're talking about. We're talking about public county-owned parking lots.
I believe that parking lot is so old that it was developed before the requirements were in place. So that's why that parking lot doesn't have trees per the code today. If that parking lot were built today, it would have one tree for every five parking spaces.
Right. But I think that was the point of this, was to, figure out how we can get the parking lots to comply. So so you're basically what you're saying is it doesn't need to go to the planning commission, so we could possibly refer the bill to the committee.
I'm saying that I don't. The bill to amend Chapter 1224 was rather extensive and rather detailed, and I don't think that needs to go to the planning commissions. It's not within their authority. It's not required by the charter. But if we took a bill to them, they'd want to review the whole thing and comment on it. But that's not what they should spend their time doing.
Okay, what about the
1936 component would have to. So that's why I was saying maybe separate them out rather than give the planning commission this big task that's not within their authority.
Separate out 19.36B would be easier. Move on to the planning commission. Okay. And then maybe send the bill 1224 to the committee is what you're saying.
I mean, the 1224 bill maybe work on the 1224 bill first, and see what the result of that is. And if the result of that is something that requires a change to the parking code, then that can come from the conclusion of that effort.
Okay. Okay, so I think what you're asking to do is to just refer the proposed bill to the care committee and then try to figure it out from there, how to separate it out, because more than half of this doesn't need to go to the plan commission.
That's correct.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Member
Chair.
Paulton. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director McLean. Just to clarify, this is kind of like that other one we took on Wednesday with the EV parking and the Chapter 10, similar idea. And then
Similar in that it's combining two things, and only one of them is under the commission's authority.
Okay, and then my other question is, when you referred to War Memorial, it was recently resurfaced. And I think I recall the Parks Department coming to us for an exemption that we wrongly passed, because in their presentation, they said they were going to do all the trees around the perimeter. And I guess us as decision makers should not have approved that, probably, because I've sat in that War Memorial parking lot and it is very hot. So we as a body should not exempt even the county, probably. Okay, thank you.
Any more comments on the resolution 22-258? Okay. Mr. Clerk, do we have more testifiers?
Chair, there's currently no one else signed up to testify on resolutions, so we'll do last call at this time. If there is anybody else who would like to testify on either of these items, please identify yourself now. I repeat, this is last call for testimony on resolutions.
Members, are there no objections to closing public testimony and accepting written testimony for resolutions?
Objections.
Any objections? Okay, so ordered. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, you have before you, Chair, proceeding with resolutions. You have before you Resolution 22-257, entitled Approving Proposals for Inclusion in the 2023 Hawaii State Association of Counties Legislative Package.
Member Paulton.
Thank you, Chair. I move to pass this bill.
Okay, second. Moved by Member Paulton, seconded by Member Sinanci to pass the resolution.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
My
resolution 22, so it actually not passed. To adopt resolution 22-257. So passed, moved by you, Member Paulton, seconded by Member Sinanci, and now discussion. Member Paulton.
Thank you, Chair. Members, Resolution 22-257 lists the 5 proposals for inclusion in the 2023 HSAC legislative package as approved by the HSAC Executive Committee at its meeting of October 25, 2022. At this time, I would like to proceed with a proposed amendment that will be distributed by the Office of the County Clerk.
Was it distributed?
I believe it was emailed, but...
Okay. Oh, it's going to be distributed now.
Thank you. So, I'd like to move to amend Resolution 22-257 as follows. Strike the third whereas clause. Also in the fourth whereas clause, replace one proposal was with 3 proposals were, and also add a bill for an act relating to the regulation of tobacco products, as well as a bill for an act relating to traffic fines. And in the 5th whereas clause, replace 2022 with 2023. And that's it. If I can get a second.
Second by Member Sinensi. Okay, the discussion, Member Paulton.
Thank you, Chair. The proposed amendments accurately identify the Hawaii County Council as the originator of various proposed state bills for the 2023 Hawaii State Association of Counties legislative package and correct the reference to the year.
All right, any questions or more comments on this proposal? Proposed amendment? Member King.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to ask Member Paulton if this was the tobacco one was run by the HSAC.
Member
I don't
Paulton?
remember that being in the HSAC package when the executive committee looked at it.
I believe the tobacco was from the previous term that we were carrying it forward.
Oh, okay. So you bring back from the previous term. Okay. Thank you.
Any more comments or questions? If not, all those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand and say aye.
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 I see 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. I see 8. No, not 7 ayes. 7 ayes, 2 excused. Excused are Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez and Member Sugimura. Now the main motion as amended.
Thank you, Chair. Resolution 22-257 lists 2 proposals from Maui County and 3 proposals from Hawaii County as follows. State bill relating to the employees' retirement system, which would provide an incentive to recruit and retain more police officers. State bill to expand exclusions of the definition of development in Chapter 205A Hawaii Revised Statutes to reduce the need for special management area permits for certain activities. House resolution requesting the State Department of Health to adopt rules for a permit to discharge pollutants that consider the major factors that are considered in identifying the functional equivalent of a direct discharge for point sources or non-point sources. State bill to reauthorize the counties to enact restrictions of the sales of tobacco products, including electronic smoking devices, by inserting a sunset date into Act 206 Session Laws of Hawaii 2018. And state bill to clarify that the counties may, by ordinance, designate county highways where the stopping, standing, or parking of vehicles are restricted or prohibited. Each of the 4 counties is now required to review and approve the final package of proposals as approved by the HSAC Executive Committee before they are sent to the state legislature. The HSAC Executive Committee is requesting the approved resolution be sent to them before their next meeting on November 22nd, 2022. So it is important we act on this resolution today. I respectfully ask for the council members' support of my motion as amended.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Before we take the vote on the main motion as amended, we need to vote on Rule 19C. Member Paulton.
I move to waive Rule 19C of the rules of the council so that we may take action on this item today because it's time sensitive.
No, because this is second and final reading.
Because it's final reading and it's time sensitive.
Okay. Right. Any more discussion? Did you have a second on that? No, no. This is for the rule waiver. Okay.
I second.
Seconded by Member Kama.
Oh,
Moved
I
by
did.
Member Paulton, seconded by Member Kama. And any more discussion on this? This is on the rule waiver, yeah, 19C. If not, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All ayes, 0 noes, 2 excused, motion carries. Excused are Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez and Member Sugimura. So that takes care. Oh, now we have the main motion as amended. Okay. Any more discussion on the main motion as amended? If not, all those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 noes, 2 excused, motion carries. This one, the excused are Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez and Member Sugimura. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, you have before you for referral to the Council Chair for the 2023 to 2025 term, Resolution 22-258 entitled Referring to the Lanai, Maui, and Molokai Planning Commissions and Advisory Committees to the Maui Planning Commission, a proposed bill amending chapters 12.24 and 19.36 Maui County Code relating to the landscape planting plan.
Is this you, Member King?
Yes, it is, Chair.
Okay.
Given the input from the planning director, I'd like to get this referred to the care committee for our November 30th meeting. And I wanted to ask Mr. Rotz if he's here, if it's possible to make the referral just for 19.36 and separate out the proposed amendments in Chapter 12.24.
Mr. Rotz?
Thank you, Chair Lee and Councilmember King. The resolution could be amended, but if it's not going to actually be adopted today in amended form, the amendment probably wouldn't be in order. It'd probably be more efficient to consider amendments like that in committee if there's not going to be council action today.
So we could make those amendments in committee as far as passing out a proposed bill for chapters 12.24 and then forwarding the 19.36B onto the Planning Commission.
Mr. Rotz?
Thank you, Chair Lee and Councilmember King. Well, actually, what's on today's agenda and what would be referred is a resolution that attaches a bill as an exhibit. If there's going to be proposed action on a bill without a resolution referring the bill to the planning commissions, a separate piece of legislation would probably have to be introduced. You'd have to have a bill on Chapter 12.24A as a standalone new proposal.
Okay, so if we refer the whole thing, we can do that in committee.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Rotz?
Can we make those changes in committee is what I'm asking.
Thank you. I don't think so, actually, because you need a bill referred to committee. Right now, we have a resolution that's on today's agenda, and that's what would be referred. So it would probably require a separate introduction of a bill.
Okay, so we could, if we refer this one, we could amend the resolution to just address the 19.36B section of the bill.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that's correct.
But the 12.24 would need a separate bill. Okay. So I think the easiest thing to do would be, I mean, we can't make a referral to a bill right now, is what you're telling me. So if we just refer this, we can get the 19.36B section of it addressed in your committee. What is what I'm hearing?
Rotz?
Thank you, Chair Lee and Councilmember King. Yes, that's correct under the Office of Council Services viewpoint. It's possible other actions could be taken in committee, such as perhaps keeping just one unified bill, but making it explicit that you wouldn't be asking the planning commissions to comment on the rest of it
okay.
that's outside of the comprehensive zoning ordinance.
Okay, I see. So I think, Chair, I think that I was going to try to pass this out, but in light of the input from OCS and Planning Department, I just request this be referred to the CARE Committee.
Okay. Any objections, members?
Objection.
No objections, so ordered. Refer this matter to the CARE Committee. Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Chair, proceeding with resolution on proceeding with testimony on bills. Chair, there are currently no individuals signed up to testify on bills, so we'll do last call at this time. If there is anybody who would like to testify on any item in agenda section M, bills, please identify yourself now. I repeat, last call. Chair, no one has identified themselves as wishing to testify.
Members, any objections to closing public testimony and accepting written testimony for bills?
Objections.
No objections, so ordered. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, proceeding with bills. Recommended for referral to your Affordable Housing Committee is Bill 191-2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance Amending Chapter 3.34 Maui County Code relating to grants for home restoration.
Any objections to referring this, members? No objections, so ordered. I see that for the record, the Vice Chair has joined the call, and now we can proceed with the rest of the bills.
Yes, Chair. You have before you Bill 192-2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance Amending Chapter 3.48 relating to real property tax classifications and exemptions.
Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez, do you want to take this one by one or all together?
I will take up 192, and then after the 192, I'll take up 193 through 195 together.
Okay, Mr. Clerk. You already read 192. Okay, so I'm calling on you, Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez, on Bill 192.
I move to waive the requirement of committee referral and report for 192-2022 in accordance with Rule 7G of the rule.
Second. Okay, moved by Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez, seconded by Member Bolton. Waive the rules of the council regarding Bill 192. Discussion, Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. Members, this bill is time sensitive as real property tax assessed values are calculated on January.
All right, any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Okay, 8 ayes, 1 excuse, motion carries. Excuse.
Chair.
Oh.
We're missing Councilmember Johnson.
Oh, all right.
Aye. Sorry.
Aye. Okay. 8 ayes, 1 excuse, Member Sugimura. Motion carries. Now, again, Bill 192, Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. I move to pass Bill 192-2022 on first reading.
Second. Moved by Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez, seconded by Member Paulton to pass Bill 192 on first reading. Discussion, Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. Members, the purpose of this bill is to amend sections 3.48.305 and 3.48.466 to promote equity in our real property tax legislation, as discussed during the Budget, Finance, and Economic Development Committee meeting of November 2nd, 2022. These proposed amendments would address some of the issues encountered by the Department of Finance over the last year, including owners renting to themselves and long-term rental leases that last for 1 year and 1 day in order to qualify for 2 years of the exemption. As your committee also discussed during the next budget session, the council may want to address additional concerns while setting the real property tax rates, but these amendments are a start to addressing equity concerns related to Maui County's real property tax legislation. And I respectfully ask the members' support. Mahalo, Chair.
Any more discussion? Member Paulton.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Martin was with us when we discussed the general idea of these amendments in committee, and she did explain, some folks that have TVRs were saying that they shouldn't be paying the STR rent, but they're the same, and, these other loopholes that people are using to game the system. So I'm in support of the bill because that wasn't the intent of the original legislation. And so they brought to our attention problems that they were having, and this is just fixing it on their terms. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 noes, 1 excused. Member Sugimura, motion carries. Mr. Clerk, the next 3.
Chair, you have before you Bill 193, 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to estimated revenues, Department of Parks and Recreation, Wailuku Kahului Community Plan Area, Parks and Recreation Bond Fund, War Memorial Gym Building Improvements, Total Capital Improvements, Project Appropriations, Total Appropriations, Operating and Capital Improvement Projects. Bill 194, 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Appendix C, Capital Improvement Projects, Department of Parks and Recreation, Wailuku Kahului Community Plan Area, War Memorial Gym Building Improvements. And Bill 195, 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance amending Ordinance Number 5394, Bill Number 71, CD1, FD2, 2022, relating to the issuance of general obligation bonds of the County of Maui, issuance, sale, and delivery of said bonds, Department of Parks and Recreation.
Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. I move to waive the requirement of committee referral and report for Bill 193, 194, and 195 in accordance with Rule 7G of the Rules of Council.
Second. Moved by Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez, seconded by Member Kama, to waive the rules of the council regarding bills 193, 94, and 95, 195. Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. Members, the bid opening for this project was held on November 2nd, 2022, with a sole bid of $28,342,932 received from Blazy Construction Incorporated. The department has $14,999,972 from FY 2022 and $10 million from FY 2023 available for the project, which is insufficient based on the bid. The contractor has agreed to hold the bid price for 60 days from the bid opening date, so action on these bills is time sensitive. Mahalo, Chair.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 noes, 1 excused. Member Sugimura, motion carries.
Chair, Chair. Apologies, Chair. I believe Councilmember King has left the meeting.
Oh. 7 ayes, 2 excused. 2 excused would be members King and Sugimura. Motion carries. Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. I move to pass Bill 193, 194, and 195 on first reading.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez, seconded by Member Tasha Kama, to pass Bills 193, 194, and 195 on first reading. Discussion. Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez. I think you already explained it.
Hello, Chair. Members, the purpose of these bills is to amend the year 2023 budget bill, Appendix C, and bond bill to appropriate an additional $3,350,000 in bond funding for the Department of Parks and Recreation War Memorial Gym building improvements. As previously stated, the amendment is necessary because the current appropriated funds are insufficient based on the bid received. The project includes repair to building structural elements and exterior finish,
coating of roof surfaces, upgrade of building electrical and visual fire alarm systems, accessibility improvements at restrooms and locker rooms, installation of air conditioning in the gym, replacement of gym wood flooring, bleachers, and other ancillary improvements, readiness for future addition of photovoltaic system, and structural and facility upgrades as needed to meet the enhanced hurricane protection area requirements for a Category 3 hurricane shelter. Representatives from the administration are available to answer any questions the members may have. I respectfully ask for the members' support of this motion. Mahalo, Chair.
Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, how many do you see? 8. No, 7. 7 ayes, 2 excused, motion carries. The 2 excused are members Sugimura and King. Next.
Chair, you have before you Bill 196, 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance Authorizing the Mayor of the County of Maui to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the United States Department of the Army, U.S. Army, regarding a design agreement for the Iao Stream, Maui, Hawai'i flood risk management.
Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. I move to waive the requirement of committee referral and report for Bill 196 in accordance with Rule 7G of the Rules of the Council.
Second, somebody? Second. All right. Moved by Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez, seconded by Member Senensi to waive the rules of the council regarding Bill 196. Discussion, Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. Members, funding for this project was included in the fiscal year 2023 budget, and approval of this bill as soon as possible will allow the U.S. Department of the Army Corps of Engineers to move forward with the design process. Mahalo, Chair.
Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye. 7 ayes, 2 excused, motion carries. Excused are members King and Sugimura. Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. I move to pass Bill 196 on first reading.
Second. Moved by Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez, seconded by Member Senensi to pass Bill 196 on first reading. Discussion, Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. Members, the purpose of this bill is to authorize the mayor to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Department of Army Corps of Engineers to complete the design of a federal undertaking at the Wailuku River Flood Control Project. As previously mentioned, funding for this project was included in the fiscal year 2023 budget, Department of Public Works, CBS 1070, Iao Stream Flood Control Program. Design costs are projected to be $525,000, with the Department of the Army's projected cost estimated at $342,000, and Maui County's cost projected to be $184,000. Funds are currently being requested for this project. Representatives from the administration are available to answer any questions. I respectfully ask for the members' support. Mahalo, Chair.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion to pass Bill 196 on first reading, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
7 ayes, 2 excused, motion carried. The 2 excused are members King and Sugimura. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, recommended for referral to the council chair for the 2023 to 2025 council term is Bill 197, 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance amending Section 2.82.050 Maui County Code relating to green print.
Any objections to this referral? No objections, so ordered. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, proceeding with testimony on bills for second and final reading. Chair, there are currently no individuals signed up to testify for any of these items, so we'll do a last call at this time. If there is anybody who wants to testify on any of these items, please identify yourself now. I repeat, last call.
Are there any objections to closing public testimony and accepting written testimony for bills on second and final reading?
No objections.
So ordered. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, proceeding with bills for second and final reading. You have before you Bill 124, 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance adopting the Hawai'i State Fire Code with certain amendments thereto.
Okay. Pro Tem Kama.
Thank you, Chair. So, Chair, due to a production issue, the public notice of final reading of Bill 124 was not published in the Maui News, Section 4-2, Revised Charter of the County of Maui, 1983 as amended, states, digest of all bills which pass first meeting and the votes thereon shall be published once in a newspaper of general circulation in the county of at least 3 days before final reading. As the notice was not published, I ask that Bill 124 be deferred until the December 2nd, 2022 council meeting. Mahalo, Chair.
Mr. Clerk.
Apologies, Chair. There was only a production error with Bill 151 CD1. All other bills and their digests were published. The digests for the other bills for second and final reading were published correctly in the Maui News.
Okay, so we can proceed to pass this one on second and final reading?
If the body wishes to do so, yes.
All right, Member Kama, it appears that what you're referring to is another bill. So
Yes,
do you
okay.
want to make a motion on Bill 124?
Chair, I move that we approve Bill 124 on second and final reading.
Second.
Moved by Pro Tem Kama, seconded by Member Molina to pass Bill 124 on second and final reading. Discussion. Pro Tem Kama.
Well, I was not prepared for discussion, Chair, because I thought that we're going to defer it, but I am in support, and I see no reason why we could not pass this since we all said okie dokie to it at the IT committee meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
2, 4, 7 ayes, 2 excused, members Sugimura and King. Motion carries. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, you have before you Bill 126, 2022, entitled a bill for an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the county of Maui to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the state of Hawaii Department of Health.
Member King, Member Molina.
Mahalo, Madam Chair. Move to pass Bill 126, 2022 on second and final reading.
Second.
Moved by Member Molina, seconded by Pro Tem Kama to pass Bill 126 on second and final reading. Mr. Molina.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Members, as you may recall, Bill 126's purpose is to authorize the mayor to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the State of Hawaii Department of Health, provide DOH with access to data from autopsy and police investigative reports related to deaths occurring in Maui County from suicides, homicides, accidental drug overdose, and undetermined deaths. I respectfully ask for the mayor's support of this motion. Mahalo.
Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 noes. Motion carries. 2 excused. Members King and Sugimura. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, you have before you Bill 133 CD1 2022, entitled a bill for an ordinance to amend Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic, Maui County Code, relating to commercial dockless vehicles and penalties.
Pro Tem Kama.
Thank you, Chair. I move to pass Bill 133 CD1 2022 on second and final reading.
Second. Okay. Pro Tem, moved by Pro Tem Kama, seconded by Member Sinensi to pass Bill 133 CD1 2022 on second and final reading. Discussion. Pro Tem Kama.
Thank you, Chair. Members, as you may recall, Bill 133 CD1's purpose is to make it unlawful to park, leave standing or lying, abandoned, or otherwise place a commercial dockless vehicle on a sidewalk, street, highway, or public property, make it unlawful to operate a dockless vehicle on a sidewalk, and increase the penalty amount for violation of Title 10 Maui County Code. While dockless vehicles provide increased mobility options over short distances, they pose considerable safety and public health concerns, create tripping hazards, make sidewalks inaccessible to the disabled, and help to create cluttered and unsafe environments for pedestrians. I respectfully ask the members' support of this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 noes. Motion carries. 2 excused, Members King and Sugimura. Congratulations, Member Paulton, as well. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, you have before you Bill 151 CD1 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending Title 10, Maui County Code, relating to implementation of a parking ambassador program to enforce county and state parking rules and laws, a paid parking system, and permit parking zones.
Let's see, paid parking. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Pro Tem Kama, this is the one I think you were talking about earlier. The Maui News had a production error.
I don't know. Did it? Oh, I'm not sure because I have notes that say to move to pass or to adopt.
Mr. Clerk.
Yes, Chair. This bill, Bill 151 CD1 2022, there was a production error with the Maui News, and the digest was not published in time for the council to act on this bill today.
So Member Kama, we cannot pass this today.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you, Chair.
Mr. Clerk.
So, Chair, just for clarity, the body wants this item postponed to the next council meeting?
Yes, tabled.
Yes. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, you have before you Bill 152 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending Appendix A of the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as pertains to Part 2, Special Purpose Revenues, Schedule of Revolving Special Funds for fiscal year 2023, Affordable Housing Fund, Pulelehua Affordable Housing Project.
Vice Chair Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. If there are no objections, may I request that the clerk also call up Bills 171 through 176, Bills 178 through 184, and Bills 188 through 190.
Did you get that, Mr. Clerk? Mr. Clerk,
no.
Call those up.
Chair, you also have before you Bill 171 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to estimated revenues, Department of Public Works, Countywide, Government Facilities, Bond Fund, DPW Highway Division Countywide Base Yard Facilities, Total Capital Improvements, Project Appropriations, Total Appropriations, Operating and Capital Improvement Projects. Bill 172 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as pertains to Appendix C, Capital Improvement Projects, Department of Public Works, Countywide, DPW Highway Division Countywide Base Yard Facilities Program. Bill 173 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending Ordinance Number 5394, Bill Number 71 CD1 FD2 2022, relating to the issuance of general obligation bonds of the County of Maui, issuance, sale, and delivery of said bonds, Department of Public Works. Bill 174 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to estimated revenues, Department of Environmental Management, Solid Waste Operations Program, Department of Finance, Countywide, Other Projects, Bond Fund, Countywide Equipment, Total Capital Improvement Project Appropriations, Total Appropriations, Operating and Capital Improvement Projects. Bill 175 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Appendix C, Capital Improvement Projects, Department of Finance, Countywide Equipment. Bill 176 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending Ordinance Number 5394, Bill Number 71 CD1 FD2 2022, relating to the issuance of general obligation bonds of the County of Maui, issuance, sale, and delivery of said bonds, Department of Finance. Bill 177 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as pertains to Office of the Mayor, Economic Development Program, South Maui Economic
Wait, I'm
Development.
not sure if that's included.
Oh.
Is this one included? Yes. Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
South Maui Economic Development, Environmental and Cultural Programs. Bill 178 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to estimated revenues, Department of Public Works, Countywide Road Improvements, Bond Fund, Countywide Federal Aid Program, Total Capital Improvements, Project Appropriations, Total Appropriations, Operating and Capital Improvement Projects. Bill 179 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Appendix C, Capital Improvement Projects, Department of Public Works, Countywide Federal Aid Program. Bill 180 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending Ordinance Number 5394, Bill Number 71 CD1 FD2 2022, relating to the issuance of general obligation bonds of the County of Maui, issuance, sale, and delivery of said bonds, Department of Public Works. Bill 181 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance, amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Appendix A, Part 1, Grants and Restricted Use Revenues, Schedule of Grants and Restricted Use Revenues by Departments and Programs, Department of Public Works, Federal Highway Administration, Federal Aid, and Other Transportation Grants. Bill 182, 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance amending Section 3.25.030 Maui County Code relating to highway beautification fee. Bill 183, 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Appendix B, Revenues, Fees, Rates, Assessments, and Taxes, Department of Finance, Special Revenue Trust and Agency Fund, Highway Beautification. Bill 184, 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance amending Appendix A of the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Part 2, Special Purpose Revenues, Schedule of Revolving Special Funds for fiscal year 2023, Highway Beautification and Disposal of Abandoned or Derelict Vehicles Revolving Fund. Bill 188, 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to estimated revenues, Department of Police, West Maui Community Plan Area, Government Facilities, Bond Fund, Lahaina Antenna Project, Total Capital Improvements, Project Appropriations, Total Appropriations, Operating and Capital Improvement Projects. Bill 189, 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023 budget for the County of Maui as it pertains to Appendix C, Capital Improvement Projects, Department of Police, West Maui Community Plan Area, Lahaina Antenna Replacement. And Bill 190, 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance amending Ordinance Number 5394, Bill Number 71, CD1 FD2 2022, relating to the issuance of general obligation bonds of the County of Maui, issuance, sale, and delivery of said bonds, Department of Police.
Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. When I looked up and saw Member Senensi's face, I realized you were right, Chair, that Bill 177 was not included. But if Member Senensi would like, I can include it, and then he can speak to that portion of it, and we can pass it all in one motion. Okay, thumbs up. I move to pass Bill 152, Bills 171 through 184, and Bills 188 through 190 on second and final reading.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez, seconded by Pro Tem Kama, to pass the bills as mentioned on second and final reading. Vice Chair Rollins-Fernandez, discussion.
Mahalo, Chair. Bill 152, 2022 amends the fiscal year 2023 budget, Appendix A, Part 2, Special Purpose Revenues, Schedule of Revolving Special Funds by adding an appropriation under the Affordable Housing Fund for Maui Ocean View LP for the Pulelehua Affordable Housing Project in the amount of $18 million. Bills 171, 172, and 173, 2022 amends the fiscal year 2023 budget bill, Appendix C, and the bond bill to add the project description and appropriate an additional $1,207,000 in bond funding for the Department of Public Works DPW Highway Division countywide base yard facilities. Bills 174, 175, and 176, 2022 amends the fiscal year 2023 budget bill, Appendix C, and bond bill to add $785,000 in additional bond funding for the Department of Finance countywide equipment and to increase carryover savings from the Solid Waste Management Fund by $300,000 and appropriate these funds to the Department of Environmental Management Solid Waste Operations Program. Bills 178, 179, and 180, 2022 amend the fiscal year 2023 budget, Appendix C, and bond bill to add $3,919,000 in bond funding for the Department of Public Works countywide federal aid program, along with amending the program description to add the Makawao Avenue Pavement Reconstruction Project Phase 1. Bill 181, 2022 amends Appendix A, Part 1 to carry over $9,530,000 from the fiscal year 2022 grant under the Department of Public Works for Federal Highway Administration, federal aid, and other transportation grants. Bills 182, 183, and 184, 2022 amend Section 3.25.030 Maui County Code and Appendices A, Part 1 and B of the fiscal year 2023 budget to increase the fee for U-Drive motor vehicles from $1 to $10 effective January 1st, 2023, expand the use of the Highway Fund beautification fee to include the ability to mitigate and address the impacts of tourism-related traffic congestion, and amend the title of the relevant fund to the Highway Beautification Abandoned Vehicle and Tourism-Related Traffic Congestion Revolving Fund. Bills 188, 189, and 190, 2022 amend the fiscal year 2023 budget bill, Appendix C, and bond bill to add $3 million in additional bond funding and a project description for the Department of Police Lahaina Antenna Replacement. And I will yield to Member Senensi for Bill 177. And I can see that Member Molina really appreciates taking this all up in one motion. And I believe this might be another record-breaking motion.
Mr. Senensi. Thank you.
Mahalo, Chair.
Mr.
Bill
Senensi.
170. Bill 177 amends the fiscal year 2023 budget, Office of the Mayor Economic Development Program, South Maui Economic Development, Environmental, and Cultural Programs to add an additional $10,000 in funding for Fort Friday events, $1,980 for the Hawai'i Wildlife Fund for fence replacement and Kelia Pond for sea turtle protection, $7,000 for the Ma'alaya History Book extension, and $14,000 for the Terran James Young Foundation for consulting fees for a South Maui Eco Village.
Okay, any more discussion on any of the bills? If not, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand, say aye. All the budget bills and this other one.
Aye.
Okay, 7 ayes. Member Paulton. 7 ayes, 0 noes, motion carries. To excuse, Members King and Sugimura. Bill 153, did you do that one?
Chair, you have before you Bill 153, CD1 2022, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance Repealing Chapter 16.16 Maui County Code and establishing a new Chapter 16.16C Maui County Code relating to the Energy Code.
Mr. Senensi?
Thank you, Chair. Move to pass Bill 153, CD1, 2022 on second and final reading.
Second somebody. Okay, moved by Member Senensi, seconded by Member Johnson to pass Bill 153 on second and final reading. Mr. Senensi, discussion.
Thank you, Chair. Bill 153's purpose is to adopt the Hawaii State Energy Code with modifications specific to the County of Maui. The deadline for adopting the county's energy code is December 15, 2022. These amendments were developed with input from the industry experts, and we thank them for their time and for their contributions. And I also wanted to thank my colleagues for their work on this bill and respectfully ask for the members' support.
Any more discussion on any of those bills? Well, not any of them. Bill 153. If not, all those in favor, raise your hand. Say aye.
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 7 ayes, 0 noes, motion carries. Excused are Members King and Sugimura. Mr. Clerk.
Chair, there's no further business before the council.
No further business. Music to my ears. So, members, do you have any parting comments? Anything like that? You want us to stay longer and talk story or member Kama?
Oh, Chair, I am so thankful and so grateful for our budget chair that she's able to help navigate, I think is the word, for us to get through many of these bills. And I so do appreciate that. And I appreciate the amount of work that it takes for that to happen. Thankful to Member Senensi and his bill. Thankful for my council members and the work that we do. Whether we agree or not, in the end, we come together and we work as a council should. So thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Yes. Member Molina.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm thankful to Member Kama as well for bringing up the subject of being thankful. We have Thanksgiving next week, so everybody have a good, safe Thanksgiving weekend, and try our best to lose weight after Thanksgiving Day, which is always my biggest problem. Mahalo.
Okay, very good. Anybody else? If not, Member Senensi.
Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to all of you and to our hardworking staff. And for those of you who are traveling during the week, travel safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and take care. And we'll see you again soon. This meeting is adjourned.
Hey, good job, Chair.
Thank you,
Good job,
Chair.
Chair.
Happy Thanksgiving, you guys. See you at the Chair's meeting.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Hey, Michelle.